Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto is sent to the Anbu and living under the watchful gaze of the Biju since a young age. Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. The horror came to Kanahigakure no Sato in an October's night. I heard all about it. The village burning and being torn apart into little pieces, terrified people screaming everywhere, men and women who didn't know if they would live to see another day praying for something, anything, to save them from it. That night, legends were made, blood ran freely through the streets, and a monster was sealed. People fought. People died. Then, in some place right in the middle of it, I was born. The way I heard them spinning the tale, the survivors mourned those who hadn't had that luck, and, after the tears ran dry, they picked up the remains of the village and went on to rebuild their home the best they could. No one who managed to live through this would forget that day, but as they say, life goes on. 14 years passed by since the night the nine-tailed fox almost destroyed the village. 14 years since it had been sealed within me. It's kind of the peaceful night out of here, I thought, just as a breeze blew through the window and brought with it the scent of leaves and trees from the forests around the village. Too bad that, inside my little apartment located on the border of a district populated by whores and criminals and backstabbers and even some good people here and there, no one could give less of a shit about peace and quiet. Maybe if I tweak the axis of the 8 trigrams matrix here, then, shit. I stopped talking to myself a bit to scratch my chest. The seals I had written all over my face and body were making my skin itch like hell, and of course, it was just how my luck had it that I couldn't poke them all that much without destroying all the work I already did. Over the floor in the living room, and the brush in my hand looked like a blur of motion while I was giving the last touches to the seal before me. It was being drawn on a human-sized paper sheet, which was positioned right in the center of the ceiling circle. A circle wide as the room was, going from wall to wall. Wait, didn't that sound badass enough? Excuse me then, for I am an Uzumaki and Fuinjutsu is our flesh and blood. My clan could eat exploding tags for breakfast, and then light a cigarette with the sparks. Sealing was a skill that threaded the fine line between science and art, and could make almost anything happen. I took to it like a duck to the water, even if I still couldn't make head or tails of the 8 trigram seal that held the QB inside my metaphorical guts. It could only be called a masterpiece, really. There's no way the seal holding the greatest of the tailed beasts inside could be anything less than that. Then there was the little fact about how the Yondaime had to summon the fucking death god to make it work. That fella took to heart the notion that if it's not overkill, you just aren't doing it right. Matter at hand being, I and Fuinjutsu? A match made in heaven. After all, in the immortal words of the distinguished Anbu Commander Dragon, I amounted to nothing more than, and that's a real quote here, an oversized, red-eyed, whiskered meathead with zero common sense and an alarming tendency for pyromania. Couldn't dispute the claim, really. I let out an exhausted breath. I think that is finally it. I will say again, QB's voice resonated inside my mind. This is completely stupid and you are obviously brain damaged, or completely mad if you can't realize this. Madness is just another word for greatness. Love, I answered with a smile. She snorted. I hate people for less than giving me silly nicknames, brat. And no, madness is another name for I think my container is a suicidal moron. Wait, you do care? I am touched, seriously. Right here in the heart. I did not squeal with joy seeing how she was concerned about me, no matter how cute it looked. If anyone ever says anything but you better burn the heretic because real men do not squeal in any way, shape, or form. Oh, you are touched all right. It's just not in the heart, QB said. But by all means, come here in the mindscape and I will show you how touched I can make you feel, annoying twerp. I just shrugged the half-baked threat from my favorite person / mythical being / bringer of destruction. She clearly had some millenniums of experience with its sun ways. Even then, thank Cammy I had learned how to block some thoughts from her. Someone would think that your mental privacy would be the least of the problems about having a giant rabbit fox thingy, who also happened to have destroyed half of your village, sealed inside your gut. This someone would be wrong. I leaned over the sheet again. Yeah, ain't you a big ball of sunshine? Now be quiet and let me check it out in the codex for the last time. The enormous book was opened by my side on a page showing a seal almost equal to the one I drew on the sheet. The Uzumaki Codex, containing the sum of all the collected knowledge about the sealing arts from my clan and their stories since immemorial times. The only thing that allowed me to be that much proficient in the art. At least, Uzumaki Codex was the official name of it. In the notes of the last Yuzukage of Yuzushiogakure, also known as my grandfather, Uzumaki Kenshiro, it was called simply the awesomest book of high-octane enlightenment. Grandpa was a wise man. Gigi, the Sandaime Hokage, gave me the book on the day he drafted me into the ANBU Black Ops. These pages were the only thing I ever had from my heritage and my own little treasure, the only people allowed to see it being me and the QB. I drank every piece of information of these pages like a thirsty man lost in Suna, and the knowledge I earned from it was what brought me to the seal I was finishing to double-check now. Well, the knowledge and, no. I couldn't think about her now. I shook my head and got back to work. There's no way I would let my mind go back to that subject now of all the times. Not when I finally could do something to try and rectify my disgusting weakness. Not now. I finished the checkup and smiled. as I couldn't find even a single misplaced line in the array. "We're in the clear," I said, closing the book with a snap. "Let's do it." I got up to my feet with a groan and resealed the codex in my wrist with a puff of smoke. Then I walked to the small table I had put next to the window, carefully positioned under the moonlight, and took a deep breath. Time to get to the real business. I activated one of the seals, a little circle on the floor next to the table, and stepped inside it. That was a simple two-way transport seal with a tweaked vanishing cluster, the change made so it would be continuously open for the substance it was keyed for. The substance being, of course, my blood. When touched by it, the seal would transfer the liquid to a bowl in the center of the room, no matter whatever much I bleed. Pretty useful thing, if I could say myself. The last tools I needed to begin were these 8 pieces of refined chakra metal scattered over the table. Each one had the thickness of a nail and a pointy end, each one decorated as the ritual demanded. And let me tell you, these didn't come cheap. I took another deep breath and picked the first one, rolling it between my fingers. The metal felt cold and the kanji for Ichi carved on its side glittered under the light for a split second. "Well, no time like now," I muttered to myself. Very, very cautiously, I positioned the sharp end a bit over my left eye and pressed it against my skin, biting my lip and forcing my body to not move. I could feel it tearing my flesh, a wound which would not heal until I decided so, as I had made an effort of will to halt my natural healing factor. It was piercing my face millimeter to millimeter until it met my cranium. Then I charged the metal with my chakra and pushed. "Come on, Fuin!" I cried through gritted teeth. Little droplets of blood fell all over the floor and were absorbed by the sealing circle under me. The seal over my left eye, now charged, flared alive, the excess of chakra rushing through my body and pulsating in unison with each one of my heartbeats. Then I picked another piece and positioned it over my right eye. "Come on, Furin!" If I wanted to, I could even close my eyes by now. I did my research about the positions of the 8 gates again and again until I knew them by instinct. The third, Simon, resided in my spinal cord along with the shaman. Talman was in my abdomen, came on in my stomach. I took real care with this one because of the 8 trigram seal, and then there was the Kaiman, just under it. As I pierced each one of them, more of the seals over my body were activating and the pain I felt increased by leaps and bounds, yet I soldiered on like the stubborn bastard I always had been. My chakra was in turmoil, to say it kindly, and a headache began bashing my head in. Just a little more. My body was at war with myself. Every piece of metal inside me was channeling power through the chakra gates to the seals in my skin, catalyzing and molding the energy into what I needed it to be. Mato Guy could open his chakra gates at will, but I was piercing them, just as the Uzumaki no Sensei demanded of me. Everyone in my clan had enormous chakra pools in comparison with the ordinary ninja, so they created the Uzumaki no Sensei to be an evolution and a trial. To be considered an adult, everyone in the clan needed to be knowledgeable enough to make the seal and have the resolve to perfectly execute it. The last pin of chakra metal was positioned in my chest, just over my heart, waiting for me eagerly, the aura around my body being almost hungry for more power. I steadied myself, feeling the untamed chakra lashing out. I clenched my jaw and did it. "Kaiman, Fuin!" I leaned on the table to keep myself straight and almost broke it. The metal piercing my body twisted and crumbled to dust as the blood all over me evaporated. I could feel my chakra alive, melding with my bones and flesh, ink-searing my skin and flaring in angry red lines. "Brat!" I heard QB calling. "We're nearing critical mass. Go!" Even if I wanted to run, the walk back to the main sealing circle was a slow one. I couldn't trust my own body to not break everything in the way, including myself. The paper in the center of the room depicted an exact outline of my skeleton, chakra coils, tenketsu and muscular system, which I had drawn with painstakingly care under the fox's guidance. After all, it was just a picture of the neighborhood for her. I kneeled over the sheet, still focused on containing the power inside me, and picked the bowl full of blood. I dipped my finger in the liquid and activated the circle. The symbols on the floor shone brightly, and the designs over the wall began spinning as my chakra powered them. I raised the bowl over my head, taking a deep breath, and turned it over. Then I clapped my hands together and put them on the ground with a shout. "Fuin Jutsu, Uzumaki no Sensei, Fuin!" I screamed, my throat raw as the pain doubled and then tripled. Every nerve of my body protested at once, and I felt like I was suddenly submerged in a vat full of acid. My blood, after all, blood was the best medium for sealing, was acting like a connection between what was depicted in the sheet and my body, the liquid crawling over my skin and even through it like magma. Then the fox came to play. QB flooded my body with her chakra and my teeth tore my lower lip as I was destroyed from within. Every chakra coil, every piece of me, everything screamed in agony. My muscles were unraveling while my blood vessels were ripped open and each little cell of my body was being infused with raw power. My bones were slowly melted by the chakra before they reformed, one after another, and I felt it all with all the slowness in the world. I dropped face first to the ground as convulsions racked my body and bent my spine while I was pulverized to dust and put together again. The screams stopped just because my lungs didn't function anymore. The only sounds in the room now being the blood rushing into my head and the lines in the walls spinning and whirring like a giant fan, absorbing the excessive energy in the ambient, and bringing it back to me. I was blind for maybe 15 seconds before my eyes reformed again. When the pain stopped, I was trembling on the floor after what appeared to be hour, yet, in the real world, couldn't have been more than a few minutes. Every muscle in my body spasmed, and it looked like a hurricane had happened in the middle of the room. The landlord would be displeased. Naruto? Naruto, are you here? I heard Kyubi, uncertainty clear in her voice as she called me. I blinked 2 times and answered her because I didn't trust my throat to produce something more recognizable than a gargle. Congratulations, brat, it really worked. We're done here. That was true, I could even feel it. Every part of my body had been permanently infused with chakra. My chakra coils were no more, as my own flesh was entwined with my chakra now. I made some experimental grunts to try and find my voice, then turned my head to the side to spit a glob of blood. Good. But I will wait until I regain the feeling in my legs before I try to stand up, thank you very much. Puny meatbags these days. I never saw the likes of Hashirama Senju kissing the floor over small fry like that in the good old times. A coarse laugh bubbled in my throat, and I tried my best attempt at a roguish smile. Why? Want me to kiss you instead of the floor? Kyubi just ignored the question, and I felt a little more of her chakra coursing through myself. Run the expected effects for me again, so I can check and compare with what I remember from Mito and Kushina. I recalled what I knew of the Uzumaki no Sensei and began reciting it in my seldom used lecture mode, which I had proudly shanghaied from Irika-sensei. Even then, I couldn't shake the nagging suspicion that she was just trying to see if I wasn't brain damaged after the process. The scary thing? I wanted to know, too. The way it should be used makes chakra fusion with the body at a cellular level. The chakra coils just cease to exist, and everything in your body becomes one with chakra. Checked. You don't have the coils anymore. I tried to wiggle my toes and smiled when I felt them working normally. The effects are the basic package of unbridled Uzumaki violence. More strength, speed, enhanced healing. Kyubi made a strangled noise and I rolled my eyes. Shut up, I know mine is kinda ridiculous already. Anyway, the ritual's supposed to attune you better with your chakra nature too, although in our case, I let the sentence hang there. I see. The perfect fusion of spiritual and physical chakra with the material medium. It's no surprise that everyone wanted you abominations wiped from the world. I nodded. In a nutshell, then, a truly unholy grin stretched my lips and I could bet my right arm that it was perfectly mirrored in the fox's maw. Oh yeah, my life would be very, very interesting from now onward. I am a very, very dangerous individual now. After a second's silence, Kyubi spoke with some disbelief in her voice. No shit, brat. You put hours upon hours of effort in that seal and that's the result? Wait, what? Did I hear a giant murderous fox squeal in delight? I am so proud. My Jinchuriki is the shit now, how could I disagree with her? Making eldritch things with ink, stubbornness and a bad attitude always had been a proud Uzumaki tradition, and the Fuinjutsu madness was quite the common trait in the Uzumaki family line. Thinking about it, I could truly imagine Mom running around in the afterlife like a squirrel on cocaine, yelling for anyone close enough to hear about how my son is awesome. Tebane. Smiling at that mental image, I raised myself off the floor and felt distinctly relieved that I hadn't become a crippled slime. Rotating my arms to test my flexibility, I cracked my neck and stretched my sore muscles to get the blood flowing back to them. How was I doing after this ritual sealing hybrid, you ask? Fucking good, that's how. My body felt better than ever, the pain and soreness all but vanished, and I was feeling like I could withstand a bum rush of IWA heavy hitters with just my boxers and a smile. I picked the scraps of chakra metal of the table and crushed them in my hand without any effort, reducing the things to nothing but warped shapes and metallic dust. I felt alive, and my chakra, now, that was impressive. I whistled. Q. The fox didn't even try to conceal her amusement. Brat, I opened my arms and flared my chakra, blowing everything around me away. Q. Brat, she shouted. I couldn't hold it inside me anymore and began laughing. Hard. So hard I dropped wheezing to the ground while holding my sides. It was just precious. Once again the ingenuity of the Uzumaki clan gave me a way to kick ass and take names. Still snickering and with a happy skip on my steps, I walked to the bathroom and took my clothes off, only to suddenly feel the urge to stop in the front of the mirror. A chill ran over my spine as a thought came to the forefront of my mind. I didn't stop to think about it, but could my features have been altered by what I did? I was almost scared to look, but I did nonetheless. I promptly breathed in relief. The same man was looking back to me. The strong jaw, the looks, too ruggedly, in my opinion, to be called handsome. 3 whiskers on each cheek, high cheekbones, straight nose. I was taller than everyone my age, and more muscular than everyone in Konoha too. Enko-chan had said something about heroic build while talking about me. Bulging biceps and developed chest, veins and muscles everywhere, muscular fibers, myocytes, with the density of titanium and sinews stronger than steel cables, the doc on the HQ said. The only change was my eyes. The slitted pupil remained here, but the normal red of the iris was more vivid, glowing a bit more than before. I rubbed my hand over my face. That was definitely too much emotion for that night. Shaking my head, I stepped into the shower and, under the warmth of the water, scrubbed the ink off my skin. Daydreams of all the exploits, chaos and generously applied amounts of property damage lurking in my future made me almost drool. In a totally unrelated note, I like to imagine that at this exact time, the citizens of Konoha shivered in abject terror. QB was thoroughly amused. After calming myself with a bath, I jumped on my bed and drifted into meditation with ease. I followed the pull of the seal in my stomach to enter my mindscape, as I needed to talk with my vixen now. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. There. When I opened my eyes, I was inside the seal and my vision was dominated by a lushly green field, scattered with some seriously big trees and a beautiful night sky sprinkled with the stars from above. The plains extended to the limit of my vision and beyond, with a faraway river cutting them. The single most eye-catching feature there was, of course, a giant reddish-orange fox lying down peacefully under an oversized tree. Strange, I know, peace, and she didn't usually mix too much, so I looked at the unusual scene with a smile. I always liked to visit QB before sleeping, mostly because I didn't appreciate the fact that she was alone here most of the time. Yo, Q. Everything's alright here? I asked, walking in her direction. The fox eyed me carefully. Yes, Naruto. I'm good, she said. Her voice sounded different. Soft, almost. Wait, holy shit, she used my name, my fucking name. She never called me Naruto normally. It was only Brat, Nigen, and a whole bunch of nicknames, some better than others. What in the bloody hell had inspired this change? I'm Naruto now? She just stared at me. I sat cross-legged at her side and leaned to support my back in her fur. Of course I am. What's on your mind? She ignored the question and pointed to the night sky. Look. Then QB waved a paw and the firmament of the mindscape changed. I couldn't describe the appearance without saying anything more than the fact that the night sky now had lights draped all over it. It looked simply breathtaking. These green lights which appeared to be dancing with the stars. I tried again to find the right words and failed utterly, resigning myself to stare at the spectacle with an open mouth. That's incredible, Q. What is that? It was called Aurora Borealis, the northern lights. A natural effect which happened around the poles of our world a long, very long, time ago, she said. I don't know if it still happens, but back in the day, I loved to lie down and look at these lights. Now they are just a reminder of a past long gone. I found myself grinning. The fox had witnessed so much, knew so much, and it was simply amazing. I remembered how she used to tell me stories when I was younger, of the old times and many different things, about battles, about men and women who changed the world and of lands outside the elemental nations. You impressed me today, and that brought my thoughts crashing down to earth. Wah, with the seal work? Come on, you're millenniums old. A hairless monkey with a brush like you normally call me can't be that impressive. I dismissed the compliment, trying to hide the pride I felt at hearing it. No, not with the seal. To do what we've done, you gave me free rein with your body. With the same ease I attached the Uzumaki no Sensei to your insides. QB shook her head. Naruto, I could have done much more. I am not certain if you know, but if I wanted, I could overpower the seal and your own coils to be free. And kill you in the process. She whispered the last part, but I heard it clearly and didn't even need to think to answer her. I knew. Just as I knew you wouldn't do it. She tried to mask her surprise, I think, but the slight widening of her eyes and the slack of her jaw gave her away. And how, exactly, did you know I wouldn't? Because I trust you. Her blank expression changed in one of absolute shock. It was like she never received the trust of a human being before, and thinking about it, that was probably the case. Almost everyone considered her a raving beast, and reacted to her presence by fighting or fleeing. It was a sad thought because I knew the error of this judgment better than anyone alive. She was brilliant, smart, knowledgeable, and the single most interesting person I knew. Yes, you have my trust, Q. I nervously rubbed the back of my neck. Look, I'm not big with emotional talks, but if you need to be certain of something, it's this. I would trust you with my life without a second thought. We fell into a comfortable silence as I looked to the mindscape sky. She knew the reasons for that trust, and they were important ones indeed. When I had no one to turn to, she was there for me, with me. She never left me alone. I stood up and began pacing around, still trying to organize my thoughts in a way I could make some sense of my own reasons and tell her. You know, Gigi and the people in the ANBU are important to me too. I kicked a stone and turned to her, waving a hand. Fuck, Kakashi is practically my brother in all but blood, but they aren't you know? For them, I would fight, bleed and kill, but for you? I lowered my voice almost to a whisper. I would die for you, Q. Come hell or high water, it is you and me against the world. Without you, QB, you are the only thing keeping me sane. If something happened to you, I looked down, trying to find the correct, smart words, without success. My nervous tick began acting again. With each snap of my fingers, a little flame ignited in my hands before it was snuffed out by another snap. You know what? I wouldn't exchange my life for anyone's else. Ever. Just because I have you. She stood in silence, a comprehensible reaction to the bomb I had just dropped. Q could count her age with 5 digits or more and her thought processes. Her moral compass was, simply put, inhuman. The realization of what I had just said probably struck her silly, but it was the truth. When I was a little boy who knew nothing, she was there teaching me, guiding me when I was growing and telling me her stories. When I fought for his village in my missions, she was here with me too, helping me to survive and win. QB helped me cast away most of these pesky concerns about what the villagers thought about me and focus on people who really mattered, and she did it with her mere presence and companionship. She changed me to more than I could ever be if I was left alone the mushroom style, kept in the dark and fed with bullshit. And I was nothing if not grateful for it. Finally, she saw fit to begin talking. Naruto, I've known you before even you knew yourself, QB said, and yet you keep surprising me. She inhaled a deep breath and looked at the sky. You already knew how, when I was unleashed upon Konoha by that son of an Uchiha whore, the people here saw me just like all humans did before, a rampaging beast. Even when I tried to reason with the silly maggots, calling them silly maggots probably didn't help your case. QB gave me a look and I made the wise decision of shut up. Then, when you awoke inside the seal after the situation at the Forest of Death, we talked. She shrugged her shoulders. Of course it was merely for the novelty of the thing. My previous seals had me strapped to rocks or nailed with pointy shit, so a talkative host was quite the news, even if I had already fully planned to rip your mind at the earliest convenience. Of course she did. Why was I not even a bit surprised? One of her tails nudged me in the head. But you, this tiny little squirt of a human, talked to me like I was just another person or a rational being, and lo and behold I really am. There were you, smaller than my pinky, talking a big game to me. To me, she laughed at the absurdity of the situation, and even I let a snicker or two escape. Seriously, remembering that made me think I should have had a big pair of brass balls with the third one made of titanium, and maybe measure of insanity, when I was a kid. Probably both. There and then, I decided to remain and see what you would become. I'm immortal, it's no big either way. I snorted and caressed her tail. I live only to entertain you, any? She ignored me, the rude little thing. I was pleasantly surprised with your own brand of, let's say, uniqueness, you crazy bastard. You made immortality interesting for the first time in ages and well, I am amused. So you shall receive a reward. As she finished talking, her enormous body began glowing. I raised an eyebrow and clapped with false enthusiasm. Thank you. I feel really appreciated now that I have a brand new demonic flashlight. Why, thank you. She still managed to give me a withering glare. Lame. Just watch and be amazed. Let's never be said that Uzumaki Naruto didn't enjoy a gift in any shape or kind. I nodded happily and waited, and the fuck? From the absolutely nothing, I shit you not, she was suddenly enveloped by fire. Well, I could do something like that too, so it wasn't so big of a surprise. The surprise was the form she had inside that fire. I swallowed dryly. For the barest of the seconds, I saw it, and that creature was just wrong. Wrong in the sense of breaking the possible shapes of the reality, contorting in a geometry just impossible for the human mind to comprehend. Too many sides, too many angles. That thing wasn't a fox, it just was. QB howled to the sky and the flames around it suddenly flared to a painful degree, the light of a star-going supernova contained in her new and otherworldly form. The being was swirling and compressing itself, making the mindscape tremble with her immeasurable power. I could hear someone or something screaming in the wind and everything pulsated around us like a giant heartbeat. With another howl, the northern lights above us blistered red before they broke into wisps of light as the sky burned. The very weaving of the mindscape unraveled and twisted at her show of strength, groaning and screeching at her presence. For the first time, I understood why the Yondaime needed the help of a god to seal the nine-tailed fox inside me. Being in that presence was the closest thing to a religious experience I ever had been through. I smelled the smoke of fields torn apart by war and felt the heat of flames in all forms caressing my skin. I saw a sun rising and dying on the horizon and heard meat sizzling in a bonfire. There were stars being born and the eruption of volcanoes all around me. I saw and felt everything. My own chakra was answering the call, a blazing inferno, inside me and hungry. Her presence was everywhere and for my life, I couldn't avoid looking at her until the power subsided, just for me to immediately bit my lower lip in hopes of stopping the nervous laugh bubbling in my throat. The giant fox was no more. Instead, inside the light, there was a form with a head and 4 limbs as the demon inside me turned into a woman and a rather petite one. She would reach my chest, at most, and would appear totally fragile next to me, even if I knew better. Then the light disappeared and I fully saw her human form for the first time. My jaw fell to the ground. She was, in a word, gorgeous. Her face was heart-shaped, with a cute nose, regal cheekbones, and pouty lips. Her hair flowed in a bright red color, which made me of fire and blood, covering an eye and reaching the base of her spine. She had the perfect hourglass figure, with wide hips and a thin waist. It could be said that her smile was a bit wider than it was adequate to her face, yet, it added to his beauty instead of detracting from it. Kind of a dangerous allure. Like a queen, that was the only thing I could think about how she looked and carried herself. She was clearly well endowed, wearing a white kimono with red designs, and the fact that I couldn't see a signal of a bra made my cheeks burn. She had a black choker around her delicate neck and the stone in the center of was a representation of the seal, making a contrast with her pale skin. When she opened her eyes they were like mine but inexplicably different, a pair of crimson irises and slit pupils burning with an eerily glow in the mindscape's night. She wouldn't fool anyone if she tried to pass as a human, as no mere human being could ever be this beautiful and unblemished. My thoughts were interrupted by a warm pressure, tasting slightly of strawberries, right against my lips. It was an unexpected and welcome sensation, that kiss, my first kiss. A chaste kiss which ended too fast for my liking. Speechless, the only thing I could rationalize enough to do was to look in her eyes and put my hands on her waist, bringing her closer and waiting for her to take the next step. And her eyes. They were shockingly full of a feeling I never even dreamed about seeing, and, in these fleeting seconds, I could honestly say that I knew her for what she really was. I could see anything and everything the single most important person in my world had in her heart. Prideful. Arrogant. Deadly. She didn't have a smidge of care about almost anything or anyone, viewing the human race with scorn and contempt. A textbook demoness through and through. Sure, of course, she was all of that. With me? She could make me laugh at the worst days and we could talk for hours at end. For me, the Kyuubi no Kitsune wasn't only a being hellbent in devastation nor an eldritch abomination who only felt rage. She was perfect. My name is Natsumi. Her voice had changed with the transformation, now velvety and full of silky undertones. Yet, even if she sounded sultry and feminine now, her words still carried a current of inhuman power, and I almost flinched remembering what she really was, that thing inside the fire. And with that kiss, I made your mine. I couldn't think, really, so I just acted. I cupped her cheek and kissed her lips. It probably was sloppy. I didn't have much experience, but she seemed to like it. I pushed her until her back was pressed against the tree and caressed her sides. Then her hands were suddenly in my hair, unmaking the ponytail and scratching my scalp. We practically melded together, her a firm and alluring pressure against my exposed chest. She tentatively touched my lips with the tip of her tongue and I opened my mouth, our tongues clashing in need and without any reminiscence of restraint or control. The kiss only stopped when I felt the need of air and, even then, I could feel an almost obscenely big smile forming on my face, an expression she mirrored in her own. How do they say it? Jackpot, tiger, I said, trying to regain my breath. I think we should stop for tonight. Her grin was reminiscent of the cat that got the canary. Well, whatever, it's not like I am going anywhere. Then she put a finger on my lips. Just one thing, Nat is okay, but if you call me Natsumi-chan, I will rip your tongue off with my own teeth and slap you with it. I laughed, and nuzzled my face in the crook of her neck. Stop before you turn me on, little vixen, I said, kissing her on the lips one more time before what I said fully registered to her. She pushed me away and punched my shoulder. Little vixen? Fuck you, meatbag. Sorry, I have class. You will need to wait for the third date. Nat just rolled her eyes and gave a smile, just a few steps of being downright predatory, looking at me like I was a piece of meat. The thing is, I couldn't decide if I should feel threatened or pleased by it, so I settled for being turned on. Hormonal teenager there and all, gents. Stealing another kiss, I released her and found myself already missing the heat of her body. Funny how someone can miss something he had just got. No, then I had a great idea. Intending to give her a gift too, and an awesome one at that, I closed his eyes for a second and spread my will over the mindscape's form, focusing on all the feelings of home, of belonging, I had in me. My tongue poked through my lips and, with my face scrunched in concentration, I clapped my hands together and touched the ground. The mindscape trembled before me and slowly, a house sprouted from the soil, created with nothing but my will, and the building was very impressive in my humble opinion. It was mostly made of wood and built very similarly to the Sarutobi clan compound, where Hokage let me host my meager birthday parties when I was younger. It represented a place of good memories and happiness for me, and now, it was hers. Things inside the mindscape tend to be quite the in-your-face kind of symbolic. The house had a garden and big windows, as I already knew that Natsumi liked to awake with the sunrise shining on her face. I never got the hang of it, must be a fox thing, but to each one his own. Proud of my creation, I caught her hand and walked her to the house. No, to her house. Our house. I don't like getting things without giving anything in return, I said, scratching my chin. The house is yours, Nat. Nat looked around with a finger under her lower lip. I don't know, it looks like quite the nouveau riche kind of house. I will need to redecorate it extensively before it suits my needs. She made a show of looking to the house for some seconds more before she turned to me again. In all seriousness now, thank you. I haven't had a house in almost 2 centuries. I shook my head and embraced her again, giving her a long last kiss before I left. It wasn't a steamy or lustful one, but it was sweet, a kiss intended to mean that I would be back in no time for more. The last thing I could see before my presence in the landscape faded was Natsumi, standing here at the doormat and touching his lips daintily, with a small and beautiful smile still on her face. When I woke up, I needed all of my willpower to just suppress an enthusiastic yell and a suitable celebratory dance. This night had been, hell, what's with Natsumi finally talking about herself to me and the kiss? The kiss! Holy mother of log, I had kissed the Kyuubi. Or, to be more exact, she kissed me. Cammy's balls. Thinking about it, with her living inside me, kissing her sounds as an extreme case of bilateral masturbation. And on that note, I need to say that my mind always had been quite warped in some ways, so bear with me there. Could I consider her my girlfriend? Unlikely, as she was above this pedestrian shit. She would probably call me her mate just to fuck with me and laugh at my face, and I didn't doubt for a second that she would do it. Whatever our label was, you better be pretty fucking sure that we were together now. A snort escaped from my lips when I thought more about my actual situation. If the someone caught wind of my kiss and, hopefully, future ones with Natsumi, the hospital would need to be on red alert for cardiac arrests, and a lynch mob would be knocking at my door. She would probably find a way to stroll right in the village just for shits and giggles, too. Without wiping the totally satisfied look from my face, I closed my eyes and set my sails to the dreamland. I was under the distinct impression that my dreams would evoke the figure of a certain red-haired vixen with burning eyes and luscious, strawberry-flavored lips. Things were looking up for me. I woke up when the sound of footsteps came from the outside of my bedroom. The faint noise startled me awake and made me react by molding my chakra in my right hand in the form of a kunai and holding it in an inverted grip. The invader would learn how much I am not a morning person. I threw the sheets off me and jumped from the bed, approaching the door separating my bedroom from the rest of my apartment in a silent stalk. I stopped only to rub my eyes and turn the knob, shoving the door open with my bare shoulder. The intruder was right in my kitchen, slouched nonchalantly in a chair like he owned it. Oh, him. He was a tall man with a half mask and had an orange book open next to his face. He was wearing the standard Jounin uniform, the one with the Uzumaki swirl in his back, and despite his appearance, he was regarded as a living legend in the village. Hatake Kakashi, also known as Sharingan no Kakashi, my sensei since I entered the ANBU, a veteran of the Third Great Ninja War, jerk-ass extraordinaire, and one of the few true friends I had. So, I promptly threw my kunai at him to give the respectful good morning he deserved. "The fuck you are here, Kakashi-sensei?" I shouted from the door. Suddenly throwing a kunai at someone could be seen as kind of an overreaction, but with him? Kakashi was absurdly skilled. As things were, he could defend himself from a pesky little thing like that while blindfolded and tied upside down over a pit of crocodiles. And yes, I had the dubious pleasure of witnessing that during a seriously weird mission. True to his form, Kakashi slapped the weapon away from himself with the book's cover and pointed an accusatory finger to me. "Ma, Naruto, that's how you treat a guest here." "No, just invaders," I answered. Seeing as how I probably wouldn't get any more sleep, I rubbed my eyes and made a beeline to the cupboard, where I picked a jar of coffee and 2 mugs. "Man, I am really hating you now." "It's what? 6 o'clock? 7, Kakashi theatrically put his hand over his chest. "And someday you will hurt my heart with these mean words, you cold little kohai you. Keep it up and maybe I will use a kunai instead of words to hurt your heart," I said and raised an eyebrow. "And you're calling me cold? Me? Just watch closely then, you heathen." I slowly poured the coffee into the mugs, touched each one with a finger and channeled my chakra through my skin just enough to heat both of them, a feat which would be almost impossible for me before yesterday's night. The only reason I could even do something like that, was a side effect of having the adaptable chakra of an Uzumaki, the 8 trigram seal, and housing the Kyuubi almost since birth. Her presence mutated me in her likeness. Not that I complain much about that. The spiritual, or in, aspect of my chakra is fire, all kinds of fire, even the metaphysical side of it. I can create and control flames better than any Katan user and even do that with heat to a minor degree, at least until I can train more and better my control. When the mug began steaming, I cut the flow of chakra and turned to Kakashi. I smiled at my success then, and offered 1 cup to Kakashi, carefully watching for his reaction. He didn't look very impressed. "So you are like a blonde microwave now?" I am truly amazed. "Geez, sensei, fuck you too," I said and sat in the chair next to him, rolling my eyes at his almost criminal lack of appreciation for my abilities all the while. "How rude." He shook his head and looked back to his book. "I will not even answer that." True to his word, he said nothing more. I huffed in exasperation and raised my fist to him. Then he gave an eye smile in his own infinitely infuriating way and finally put his Ika down to bump his knuckles with mine. "Now cut the bullshit and say what you are here for," I asked, stopping only to stifle another yawn and wave in his direction. "I didn't even know that your lazy ass could wake up before dinner." "Hello, Pot, my name is Kettle, and look, we are both black," he answered. "I'll have you know, though, that the Hitaki clan is renowned far and wide for our morning disposition." "Sure, and Iwagakure is known for their truly burning love for the yondaime." "Ma, aren't you a real blast?" "Anyway, to be clear, I am here at this ungodly hour because the Hokage ordered me to pick you up and go to his office. Urgently, too." Kakashi took another sip from his mug. "You know how he gets." I just sighed in answer and drank the entirety of my coffee in a big gulp. "Dude, I swear the old man do it just because he can't sleep more than 2 hours straight, 3 tops." I rubbed the bridge of my nose. "Hell sure, hang there while I put some clothes and let's go." Kakashi gave me a look while I got up and raised an eyebrow, his mask stretching with a smile. "I don't know, Naruto, you could bring half of Konoha down into submission with a chest like that. Have you ever thought of weaponizing it, maybe in a Bishounen no Jutsu or whatever?" Natsumi made her presence known, stretching the word as if she was seriously contemplating the idea. "Kakashi's pretty right on the money about it, Naruto." "Good morning for you too," I greeted her and cheerfully showed Kakashi my middle finger. "Up yours, douche-sensei." He was already hidden behind his book, though. "Not on the first date, hot stuff." That's what she said. Under that combined assault of overwhelming proportions, I took the sensible way out and made a tactical retreat for the safety of my bedroom. But not before I thanked every god out of here for the fact that these two wouldn't meet for a long, long time. I opened the door of my battered wardrobe and began putting my usual clothes on, gazing with nothing but contempt at the corner populated by horrible neon orange outfits, all of which were reserved for my academy days, as they were large and stupid, so they would underestimate me. With my posture slouched, in clothes too large to show how strong I really am and colored too dumbly to someone to think of me as a threat, they were the perfect disguise. Snickering, I put a black, sleeveless shirt with the Uzumaki swirl in red at the back, slightly padded for added protection, and cargo pants of the same color. I covered my hands with a pair of fingerless gloves with metal plates over the knuckles and put my forearm guards in a pair of black steel-toed boots. Then I closed the wardrobe and picked my knife, if I could call that thing long as my forearm, that, off my nightstand, firmly strapping it on my left hip. Finally, I picked my Anbu mask and hung it on my belt. The mask was beautiful, plain white and in the form of a grinning fox, with red swirling details scattered all over the front, and inside, it was scribbled with various seals, increased hardness, fireproofed, self-cleaning, everything. It was a work of art if I can say so myself. Standing up, I snapped my hair in a ponytail and looked in the mirror, armed, dangerous, and stylish as hell. I was ready to roll. Natsumi apparently was of the same mind. I could eat you, you know, especially when you are well dressed like that. I need to go, Nat, but hold the thought until I come back to the mindscape tonight. She laughed. Gladly. Now go, the Cyclops is waiting for you. Off we go then, milady, I said, and as I closed the door to the bedroom and turned to Kakashi's direction, I stopped in shock and took a double take of the scene that was developing at my kitchen. It couldn't be true. It was too perfect. Kakashi obviously wasn't a morning person, and that was a conclusion reinforced by the snores coming between his crossed arms. The man was dead on his tracks, sprawled at my table and drooling all over it. Possessed by some sort of demonic inspiration, I gave him a mischievous smirk and began planning a method to wake him from his slumber. Of course, I could do it in a calm, respectful and gentle way. Nope, fuck that noise, Natsumi, I smiled, rubbing my hands together. Do you want to see something cool? Why, she did. A minute after that, I put my mask, jumped out of the window and began running for my life in the direction of the Hokage's tower. Just before the underpowered exploding tag I had put next to Kakashi's head detonated. This would teach the bastard a lesson about waking people from their good, supple and red-headed dreams. I think I startled some people in the way when I began cackling like a madman, but paid no mind to it. All was good. The first thing I saw in Gigi's office was a cloud of tobacco smoke spiraling around the room. The office was spacious, with a great view right to the Hokage monument, 2 couches on the walls, one under the past Hokage's portraits, 2 chairs before his desk, and one for him on the other side of it, where he was seated. Hiruzen Sarutobi was here, clad in his Hokage garb and puffing his faithful pipe while writing something in a paper, the same scene I saw many times before since my childhood. I took out my mask. The office was protected by a myriad of seals who would protect my identity, and crashed in one of the couches. You know Gigi, my shtick is setting things on fire and official documents are flammable. Temptation much? He had just opened his mouth to answer when a half-deaf and loudly swearing Kakashi proceeded to come through the window. Kakashi then straightened himself, and probably mistaking Gigi's open mouth for shock, began to apologize. Sorry Hokage-sama, but I laughed at the scene and the jounin stopped to give me the evil eye. Someday I will kill you, Naruto. Kill you dead? Sure thing, sensei, I answered, nodding respectfully to him and biting my lower lip to not laugh again. Well, let's never be said that Uzumaki Naruto couldn't exercise restraint when needed. The Hokage gave us a nod of recognition and a snicker to the smoking jounin, then exhaled a long puff of smoke out of his nostrils. Kakashi-san, Naruto-kun, I hope it's a good day for you too, and please excuse me for this early call. He politely ignored my ramblings about how the day would be better if I was still sleeping. Instead, he shuffled the papers on his desk and waited for me to shut the hell up. When I picked the clue and did just that, he steepled his fingers together under his chin, and his smile vanished from his face. I called your two here because I have a mission of utmost importance, and which your respective specialties will complement greatly, he said, looking at each of us with narrowed eyes. It's an A-rank bodyguard mission for a distinguished individual. I was completely certain that, if I was anyone else, the Hokage would never even dream of sending an ordinary academy student, and not even an official genin yet, to a mission of this caliber. However, I was a special case. My record and commendations in my time of ANBU service could attest so. I hope you two are recovered from your last mission? Gigi asked. I winced, the image of that little girl's face in the last mission flashing in my mind. It wouldn't happen again. Never again. I clenched my fists and set my jaw, nodding in the Hokage's direction. Kakashi did the same but spared me a worried glance. Good, because the one protected will be me. Gigi gave a humorless smile. I think that a plot was afoot in our village, and I need more manpower with me. So, you two will accompany me to the next clan meeting for an extra measure of caution. I exchanged a bewildered and shocked look with Kakashi. What could the bloody hell be happening for the fucking Hokage himself want more protection with him? Yes, Hokage-sama, I said slowly. We will do our duty. Duty for we ninjas is to fight, kill, and sabotage in their missions, a reality I knew very well, and nobody knew better than us ANBU. We are the soldiers under the Hokage's orders, the first and last line of defense of the ones we care for, the blades in the dark and reddened with blood. That's our duty, and myself? I would fulfill my duty, because that girl in our last mission deserved no less from me. I was panting and sweat was dripping from my face as I blocked the strike of the knife with my own and tried to follow it with a punch. My enemy merely blocked the punch with his forearm, enhancing it with chakra to resist, no doubt, then punched me in the face with a brutal haymaker. I tried to parry but lost my footing and the sheer strength of the attack drove me to the ground. He didn't lose time and lunged at me while I was falling, but I put a hand on the ground and snapped my right foot up, aiming for his chin. He bent back to avoid it, and I jumped back to my feet, springing in his direction. You're still open in your stance with your attacks, Sarutobi-sama said, promptly deflecting my attack to his side and slicing a bloody line in my chest, from my hips to the shoulder. Even if you have your own capabilities, it's no excuse for being careless. Asuma was a bearded jounin and a former member of the 12 Guardians Ninja, the elite bodyguarding squad who had the duty to personally defend the fire daimyo. Today, he had been teaching me a few tips on how to handle a knife fight, as Kakashi was needed in the headquarters. He was, too, Gigi's son and a friend of mine for my time in the Sarutobi clan compound. He knew of me enough to not take it easy while training me, which, clearly, was further proved by the fact he had been vigorously kicking my ass around since morning. I nodded and he came back at me in a flurry of blows. Asuma had never been the fastest of the jounins nor the most adept with jutsus, but he was freakishly strong and his defense was off the charts. I rarely trained with him, but when I did, I managed to connect an attack through his guard only once in a sparkling blue moon. Good, Asuma said, his cigarette clenched between his teeth in a grin. Keep it up now, kiddo. I blocked his double slash with my forearm guards. Sure, Asuma-sensei. Sparks were flying from where our blades were in contact. We weren't using jutsu and kept our taijutsu and strength to the barely minimum today. It was a knife fight only. He didn't even channel wind chakra to his trench knives, not that he needed it to stomp on me. Still, I couldn't complain. I had wanted to feel at ease with my body again after the Uzumaki no Sensei. Coming on a mission with untested jutsu or changes in one's body is kind of wanting to commit suicide by shinobi, so, the training session was a must. We traded blows for a while until I managed to slice his shoulder. I knew I was fucked then. He made a feint to the left, and I fell for it. I tried to block, but suddenly he was right into my guard and attacked faster than a snake lunging at a prey. First, he slammed his fist in my belly, the pointy knuckle guards of his knives furthering the damage, and then he slipped under my defense and punched my chin, and he punched hard. Hard enough to make me dizzy. It was all of the opening he needed. When I looked back to him, with blood dripping from the corner of my mouth, I felt one of his blades in my throat and the other in the back of my neck. The fight is mine, Asuma declared and removed the knives. Hi, I nodded. We didn't talk for a bit, as he took his time to pick a cigarette of his pack and offer me one. I know, it was an unsavory habit, but when you have my nose and can smell everything, every time, you take what you can to dull the senses a bit while out of combat. You are stronger than before, even with your weights on, Asuma said, and I light a small fire in the point of our cigarettes with a snap of my fingers. How much are you using again? 2,000 pounds in each arm and leg, more or less, I said. Need to up it though, he nodded. Good, but your stance, however, is still too open. How is your finger, by the way? Asuma asked and pointed to my hand. I made a clean cut so a medic nin can put it back fast. What are you talking? I looked down and snapped my mouth shut. The fucking pinky finger of my right hand was missing, even if the wound wasn't bleeding and steam was coming out of the stump. I hadn't even felt it. His knives were that sharp. Oh fuck me, that again? I slapped a hand in my forehead and shook my head. Asuma began laughing but suddenly stopped. Again? Happened before with Kakashi. Sometimes a finger, sometimes an eye, then there's that time when he managed to stab me in the D. Hell, don't ask, seriously. I said and shrugged. Whatever, it will grow back before the mission anyway. I'm good, he raised an eyebrow. You are a crazy little shit, you know that? People don't react to missing bits with meh, Asuma mocked, breathing smoke right in my face. And what is that about a mission, brat? And do you work for your dad? Quite confidential though, I answered, pausing to inhale a bit of my smoke, the taste swirling in my tongue. But now I think about it, can I ask you a question? Go on. Do you know why he asked me for it? There isn't any free jounin? Asuma though for some time and shrugged. If I remember right, the strongest ones on the roster are away on missions. Kurenai is occupied in the Kurama clan household. Guy will only come back tonight or tomorrow. Even I need to go and pack my things to lead a mission to the capital in an hour from now. I scratched my chin and nodded. I didn't know that before. Kind of makes sense now if Kakashi is the most experienced one free tonight. I come with the package and all, I said, smiling and wagging my hand with the missing pinky, now a mess of bone, sinew, and veins which still was steaming. Or maybe he just likes me that much. Dream on, brat, he said and punched my shoulder, then looked at his watch. Well, I am kind of late, so I am off to my mission. See you, and work in that defense of yours. Sure, and good mission for you, I answered and got up, slapping the dust out of my pants. I turned back to enter the forest, already planning to try a few attacks without the weights to better feel my enhanced strength when I heard him calling me again. Hey brat, catch! Asuma suddenly yelled and I spun to his direction, catching whatever he threw to me by instinct. I opened my hand to see what it was and immediately sighed in exasperation. It was the finger that he had cut out. And don't lose it again. I flipped my last grape to Natsume's head to bring her out of that state of rapture. After that, I began thinking if we could call a grape in the mindscape a mind grape and voiced the thought. Natsume gave me an annoyed stare and raised a dainty eyebrow out of the lame pun, looking at me in complete silence for some time. Then she pinched the bridge of her nose and let out a loud sigh. Of all the humans, I swear, the ceiling must have made me stark raving mad to mingle with the likes of yourself. She despaired but didn't stop herself from caressing my hair. I just smiled and snuggled in her lap. And what a damn fine lap it was. Natsume was seated on a couch inside the Mindscape's house and had me sprawled all over her legs. We were there watching a movie, lifted from her memories, together for some time for me to relax before the mission. The film was awesome as hell too. The main character, a muscled veteran soldier, was mowing down scores of people mercilessly with a thing spitting fire and little chunks of metal, and his red bandana was rather fabulous. Natsume, true to the norm, was almost drooling at the mindless carnage of the movie. It was like a child looking through a candy shop showcase in a very cute and very scary way. I stretched my arms and nudged her. What do you think about tonight's mission? I think you need to buckle up and be watchful. The old monkey isn't known for being easy to alarm. He is too shrewd, she answered, putting a finger under her lower lip. I scratched my chin and looked to the roof. Must be really something for him to come asking for more protection. He's the fucking Hokage after all. And I can feel it right there, I said and pointed to my heart. Shit will be dumped in my head tonight. Natsume slapped my forehead and narrowed her eyes. While you are in my lap, I can assure you that it will not. I like my clothes clean, thank you very much, she said and laughed at her own little joke. I gave a small smile and, even with the prospect of the oncoming mission still lingering around, I did my best to banish this kind of thoughts. With a yawn I raised myself from her lap and sat up at her side, embracing her with an arm. Looking at her, my smile widened. Even if she was still wiping out the remains of the grape of his forehead and giving me a heartbroken pout for it, I could only marvel at her beauty. How the fuck did my life become this good? Dunno, really, must be something new in Konoha's water, perhaps good karma, even. I just reveled in her presence, and paid attention to the movie's ending. These moments when we could just sit and enjoy each other? I would treasure them forever. Even the unholy gleam in her eyes seeing blood and entrails flying around in the screen just endeared her to me. Somehow, I think that it wasn't painting a nice picture of my mental health, not that I gave the singlest of the fucks. After all, sanity is for the weak. A sigh escaped from my lips when the credits began rolling. I knew then that it was almost the time for me to grace the real world with my presence again, and it came too fast for my liking. Turning my head to Natsume, I cupped her face and kissed her lips. She wasted no time and threw one leg over mine, eagerly straddling me while our tongues came to play. I put one hand in a creamy thigh with a light pressure, and she growled huskily, biting my lower lip in answer. Accepting the wordless challenge, I began to deposit light kisses all around her neck and collarbone, her nails rough in the back of my head and shoulder, hungrily pushing me to her. I was almost losing myself in the feeling when that damned alarm clock rang. Loudly, fuckity fucking thing from hell. Without sparing a single glance at the damn thing, I growled and threw a fireball on it. The explosion after that was strangely uplifting. Even after the interruption, the end of our make-out session came only with some effort from me. I could just imagine, and maybe cry curled in a corner, about the reason why my best kisses always needed to happen just that close to our goodbyes. It was almost like a curse or something alike. Maybe I really should ask Gigi for a mission to the fire temple just to be sure. Pecking her lips, I touched her forehead with mine and looked at these eyes I like so much, highly disgruntled at the thought of separating myself from her. We stood like that in silence for some time, until I mustered all my self-control and gently pushed her leg out of me. Duty calls, Nat, she huffed, and closed her eyes. Let it call another ninja, then. They don't pay you enough to dismiss me. They would need to throw a pay worthy of an S-rank mission multiple times over to have any hope of that, I said, caressing her cheek. She began to run her hands over my chest and legs, then bit her lower lip. God, the allure of these soft touches was almost too big for me to refuse. Reluctantly, I held her wrists and shook my head looking at her pleading expression. Now, it's not easy for me either. Think about it, we continue until Gigi sends someone to call me, someone who certainly will be Kakashi. The asshat barges into my bedroom without knocking, because of course he will, and see me seated here, lotus pose and all. I let her hands go and touched my thumbs with my index fingers. Then I gave a beatific smile. And when the motherfucker approaches me, he sees it the raging boner that you made appear in my pants. He would be horrified, or I shook my head. God, I hope he doesn't feel tempted, yuck, forget it. But nonetheless, he will run to the Hokage screaming that I am sexing the QB no kid. She interrupted me with an uproarious laugh and threw a pillow at my head. I swiftly ducked it and began laughing too, my form already fading off the mindscape with each breath. When we could calm ourselves again, she stood up and slapped my now ghostly ass, giving me a fleeting kiss on the lips. Go then, if you really need to. And please take care. Just because you have me and is the official Chubibiju around there, it doesn't mean that you can't fall against someone. Yeah. After all, I fell for you, I said just to provoke her. It worked. I really think the next pillow she threw broke the sound barrier. The Konoha's meeting room was big as hell and felt twice as hot, maybe thrice if I had not put the cooling seal in my mask, as the windows were sealed to prevent eavesdroppers. The room needed to be that big, of course, because that was the only way to house the table comfortably. I couldn't even think about that thing without capitalizing the name. The table was a monstrous thing made of wood and, perhaps, hate, created by the Shodame Hokage with his Mokutan, and it was large enough to all the clan heads to be seated around it. Worse, that thing was menacing. Seriously, I swear it was glaring at me. Somehow, there was an old history circulating around the Anbu people that the Shodame used that aberration of nature in the Valley of the End to bash Madara Uchiha's head into Kingdom Come. Personally, I couldn't dispute that fact. If the log was the god, the table would be the devil. Today was the meeting of the clan heads, so there wasn't a civil representative here, and thank God for that because, normally, the ninja side and the civilian side fought over the table in a cold war. Trade agreements were the kunai and the merchant licenses the shuriken of these people. Of course, it was utterly pointless. Konoha worked under a military dictatorship, and the shinobis were the enforcers of the Hokage's will. The civies could talk a big game, but in everything that mattered? If the Hokage, clan heads, and the elders said shit, they could only answer by asking in what shape, sir? They hadn't any power. The representatives were heard by the Hokage just because it's easier to compartmentalize the civilian mumbo-jumbo, and let Gigi give his attention for the shinobi deals. Seated by the Hokage's left, there was his diplomatic counselor, Hyuga Hayashi, a tall, long-haired and pale-eyed man, who was undoubtedly machinating something in his little aristocratic head. The right was reserved by Uchiha Fugaku, the one responsible for the police force, who was strangely absent. Very strange, the man was like a clockwork, never late and would rather die than ditch the meeting without an explanation. The Ino Shikacho trio was cheerfully talking with each other without giving even the smallest of fucks about the proceedings, a fact of which Chusa Akimichi being conspicuously trying and failing to hide a laugh was proof enough. Suminozuka, a beautiful, feral and wild-haired woman, was our only proverbial MILF here. She was absent-mindedly petting his huge dog, and you can trust me, when I say huge, is huge with a capital H. That monster was taller than my waist, and better yet, was wearing an eye patch of power. Coolest dog ever. The mummy man, Shimura Danzo, was seated in his corner and expressing his usual level of emotion at the meeting, which was none, while the two old Saget fellows around him were clearly busy being old in silence. Gigi was simply puffing his pipe without any real reaction, while Hayashi droned about something happening in Nami no Kuni. Properly humbled by the concentration of the finest crop of Konohagakure's leaders, I was looking with a shifting eye to the Ika Paradise edition which Kakashi had sagely disguised as an ANBU tactics manual. I fought the urge to scratch my neck. Can you even raise your lead like Naruto? I am the Kyuubi no Kitsune. I can do anything. I shifted in my stance a little. Strange, has my uniform always been tight like this? Anyway, ANBU couldn't give his identities away while on the job and Ika was Kakashi's obvious trademark. He walked around reading it all the damn time. He corrected the fault in his disguise by making almost a form of art out of reading his porn while on the clock. Our elite jounin was a crafty one, indeed. Finally, the Hokage began paying the barest amount of attention possible at the procedures and discussions to try and find a common ground between them. The need of doing this diplomatically firmly cemented Hokagedom for me as the worst job ever, because if that hat was mine, I already would be kicking faces and taking names. We need to talk about that boy, Uzumaki Naruto, Hyuga Hayashi suddenly declared. I perked up hearing this. I didn't know about Hayashi that much, but I had been a good friend of his daughter for a long time. Hinata, God bless her bleeding heart, was the sweetest thing ever and the only reason that I paid some shred of attention at the academy. Although she had a background of nobility, Hinata was very humble and kind to a fault. Even if my clone's behavior was obnoxious at best for shit and giggles, she never had harbored any notable prejudice or contempt against me. I had spent some time with him after class and, in these times, I just invited her to eat something and talk a little bit. She always gave me a nice smile and accompanied me to wherever I was going, happy like I was calling her to the best party ever. For her truly caring personality and spirit, I liked her very much. Yet, for what I knew about Hayashi, I certainly didn't like him very much. He wasn't all that of a shitty father in my conception, just very absent and desperately wanting Hinata to be strong. His methods, however, were well, let's say unorthodox at best. Hinata said to me that he wasn't a bad man, just tied by the clan elders and their traditions since the death of his brother and wife. It was a whole can of worms that I wasn't too keen in opening anytime soon, so I just tried to give her courage and support while I could. It kind of worked. She was times and times more confident now than when I meet her for the first time, which was good, but there was a long way to go still. You know, when she develops a bit more you should tap that. I almost choked on my own spit. What the fuck? I thought that people in relationships didn't do things like that. Natsumi laughed. Silly boy, I'm not people, and think about it. Your real heritage as an Uzumaki will be revealed when you become Chunin, then you will need to marry someone. You can't just come out of the woodwork saying, sorry, people, I am already with Natsumi. You know her? The nine-tailed fox who ate half of the village. But don't delude yourself, you belong to me forever, yet, you still need a human wife. She is the only one I could accept anything resembling a compromise. And there's the thing, the political power that comes with her is nothing to sniff at, her voice lowered to a whisper, like her lips were close to my ear. If you indeed claim the girl, she would be mine too in Naruto. I am a greedy vixen. I shook my head and decided to think more about it after the mission's conclusion. I felt like an idiot. Of course, Natsumi wasn't even remotely human in her thoughts. I was fucking dumb to still be surprised with it. Deciding to pay attention to the people presently talking shit about me, I heard an answer for the Hyuga coming from Koharu Yudatane, one of the elders. What about him? I saw his results of academy. The boy is average at best. Hayashi looked at her. Yes, as the situation is now, he's nothing of note, and that's exactly the root of the present problem. Humor me about it, Koharu-san. Why does the so-called Jinchuriki even exist in the first place? Hayashi stippled his fingers together under his chin, waiting for an answer. Shodame-sama rounded the biju and gave it to the villages to maintain the peace. They were supposed to be deterrents for war, and the biggest weapons in these wars, she said. Then there is the matter of the Kyuubi's attack. Hayashi nodded, then he began speaking again. They are weapons indeed. We have them for utilization in the military of the village, to defend us and put pressure on our enemies. Those like the boy are assets, powerful assets, who can seize the demon's powers and use that to great effect. I can remember a time in the Third Great War when I saw one of them fighting, one of the cloud, if my memory serves me right. Hayashi made a gesture at himself. I am a proud man, sure, and water is wet, but I have no shame in saying that I was greatly impressed. I am failing to see your point, Hayashi-san, Jiji said, his posture cautious. My point is, simply put, the boy is useless as he is now. I saw his grades in the academy, and they are dreadful, to say the least. Even in light of the new standards of education in the village that enable our sons and daughters graduate with 14 years instead of 12 like before, in times of war, he gave the clan heads a pointed look. But I have a proposition to correct it, and mold him in what he needs to be. And what proposition would be that? The Hokage's tone was polite, but I had a feeling that he knew exactly what it would be. I want to take him in the Hyuga clan as our honored guest and train him. We need our weapon to be primed and ready to lay waste to our enemies, and my clan, the strongest of Konoha, can put him on the correct path for that. The clan heads looked at him with wide eyes. With us, he can be made in the weapon that we, no, the village, needs him to be. 1, 2, 3, go. The yelling began, every one of the clan heads calling the proposal. Being a Jinchuriki is power, raw and untamed, and giving me to a clan would enable this clan in controlling the village's weapon of mass destruction. What a lovely bunch. Jiji only needed to raise a hand to calm the discussion. He gave me a glance with the corner of his eye and turned to the clan heads, his face serious for the first time in the meeting. I refuse, the Hokage said. You know, Hayashi-sama, that I cannot and will not give Naruto-kun to be under the aegis of a single clan, as it would upset the balance of power in the village. And about your fears about his ineptitude, I assure you I am. The Hokage's speech was interrupted by an explosion coming from the village. What the foo? I bolted from my position, kunai in hand, and opened the window. Everyone got up from their seats, ready for battle, and the Hyuga was the first to be next to me with his Byakugan blazing. A plume of smoke was rising from the village and fire illuminated the night sky. Before I could extend my senses to feel where the conflagration was, however, Hayashi turned back to the Hokage. Hokage-sama, it's the police force headquarters, he said with a millimetric frown. Everyone stilled in their positions before they ran to the window to confirm it. Jiji himself was preparing himself to restore some semblance of order when someone suddenly barged inside the room in a desperate run. It was a Chunin whose name I didn't know the identity, but his face just screamed Uchiha. He was pale as a piece of chalk, with bloody gashes all over his official flak jacket and a kunai handle deep inside his back. He stumbled in, falling to a knee and supporting himself in a chair. Jiji ran to the man and put an arm around his shoulders, trying to decipher what the hell he was mumbling about. The expression in the Hokage's face when he looked at us, especially me, was grim and burning with some fierce anger that I seldom saw there. Shit was hitting the fan with gusto, and in insane amounts to make Jiji piss like that. The air grew tense and his words appeared to be echoing in the chamber. Uchiha Itachi began a killing spree in the Uchiha compound. After this ominous declaration, the Chunin began convulsing and fell to the floor. Well, crap. His tone didn't allow for any complaint when he began issuing orders. Inu, please alert the Anbu and Jounins to the threat and go help with the police force. Then the room shook with more explosions, and whatever has exploded just now. Kakashi nodded briskly and left in a leaf shunshin. The Hokage's jaw was set, a scowl firmly placed on his face. I will go and deal with Uchiha Itachi myself. The room shook again, now with yelling and objections as every ninja here began to try and change the mind of the Hokage about his decision. Hokage-sama, you can't. It's too dangerous, please let us. Mitokado Hamura always had been a quiet person, so in the times he raised his voice, you had better stop and listen. Hiruzen, don't be foolish. It is probably a trap, you can't be seriously thinking about. Enough. Jiji didn't raise his voice, he did worse. He let his careful grasp on his chakra slip and everyone in the room felt the full power of the Sandaime Hokage pressing down their shoulders. The air grew cold and heavy, as was the fury etched in the old man's face. Everyone here seems to be laboring under the misconception that I was asking for permission, Jiji said in a quiet voice. Everyone here seems to be forgetting who, in truth, I really am. He took his hat off and put it in the table. I saw that his knuckles were white from the strength of his grip on it. He looked at all of us pointedly, a steely glint present in his eyes. I am Sarutobi Hiruzen, the Sandaime Hokage and Konohagakure and the successor of Hashirama-sensei and Tobirama-sensei. I am the professor. I can't be trapped, at least not any more than you can trap what I am representing, as I am the leader, commander and sworn protector of my village. I will not sit idle and let someone do my work while a misguided youth is out here. His presence shut up everyone in the room and I straightened my posture subconsciously. All of you need to go and organize your clans. See if they aren't being attacked, and protect them, while I protect the village, as my duty commands. All of the shinobis in the room nodded as one. It seems that young Itachi has lost his will of fire. Then, as the Hokage, I need to go and educate him about what happens when you try to harm someone in my village, Jiji said and, without giving time to anyone to react, he began walking to the door. Besides, even if I truly am old, I am never alone. No, my will of fire still burns. No matter wherever I go, I always carry the trust of the village with me. With these words, he stopped the flow of his chakra, and the air cleared again. I exhaled a calming breath, still looking at him and waiting for my orders, and they came, as Jiji paused in the doorstep and, without looking, raised a hand. Kitsune, you are with me, he commanded. Let us take the cover of the night to the Uchiha compound and set it alight with the full fury of the Leaf Village, as your Hokage commands. I clenched my jaw and nodded, quickly walking behind him. Thinking about the probability of an upcoming confrontation with the prized scion of that pink-eyed clan, I began wondering, maybe I should take the table with me to honor our Shodaime's tradition of smashing Uchiha's skulls into a fine powder with it. Sighing and shaking my head at the idea, I followed Jiji. His shadow was cast over me, looking as a giant amongst men, and in that moment I almost pitied Uchiha Itachi. Sarutobi Hiruzen was coming, and his will of fire would scorch the heavens, and I am Uzumaki Naruto, a shinobi under his command. I touched the thin, feminine, and red braided cord I was using as a bracelet, to remember what I needed to do and to never forget it, her. I almost winced again as I remembered her face. I would do my duty. Look, I saw some pretty shitty things in my life before that day. People dying left and right, corpses were strewn all over the floor, blood coating every surface possible, and more. The point being, I never had been one to go angsty and horrified about a little murder here and there. Yet, Itachi's handwork took the cake and ate it. I and the Hokage arrived at the Uchiha compound in silence with a shunshin, bypassing the gates. The first thing I took notice was the smell. The stench of death, coming from all around us in waves, was overpowering. Especially to someone with my senses. I looked to Jiji, who was studying the destruction with a cold, detached look. Naruto-kun, if you please, he said and made a wide gesture to the compound before us. I didn't need to ask what he was requesting of me, not with fire raging everywhere even as we spoke. Are you sure, Jiji? I still asked, just to be certain. If I do it, he will know we are here. The Hokage fixed me with a stare, and just with that I knew the error of my ways. The look on his face was cold, yes, but it was a cold rage. Jiji wasn't detached, Jiji wasn't calm. The Hokage's rage had got through the threshold of raised voices and promises of pain. Now, the best words to describe it would be tranquil fury. We are long past the point of being inconspicuous, Naruto-kun. Jiji's voice didn't betray his emotions. I want Itachi to know we are coming, to witness the consequences brought to him by his misdeeds. I want him to know we already cried havoc and let slip the dogs of war. He turned away and looked back to the carnage in the compound. The flames devouring the house next to us were reflected on his black armor, and the metal of Hittite wrapped around his forehead. The Hokage didn't come unprepared in the slightest. Even in times of peace, a Hokage doesn't go to battle unannounced, Jiji said. Do it. I never complied with an order faster in my life. I took my mask out and hung it on my belt, then closed my eyes and reached for my chakra, and almost instantly, I felt the raw power coursing through my body, making me feel alive. I extended my senses, putting power laced with my own will all around me, searching, spreading, until I felt all of the flames alight on the compound. The biggest inferno, the smallest sparks, the dying embers, I knew all of them. Then I held my hand up and called them to me. The fire answered. I didn't even need my eyelids open to see it. A vortex of flames came from every point of the compound, spiraling and roaring in my direction. The fire circled my body, almost like it was caressing my skin, then compressed itself and concentrated in a ball above my outstretched hand. It didn't let even a stray spark go away when I closed my hand and snuffed it out. I opened my eyes and turned back to the Hokage. Done, Gigi. Good, Naruto-kun, he said, smiling to me. Now, try to find any survivor while I make my final preparations for the fight we will be part of. Sure, I nodded and fell on my butt, crossing my legs. I closed my eyes again, and again I focused. This time, I wasn't searching for my element. No, I was concentrating on my senses, willing chakra to my ears and nose to fine-tune their already formidable reach. I regretted it almost instantly. Did you know you can smell death? It has a distinctive scent, a mix between sweet and metallic, but not being either one exactly. And everything in the compound simply reeked of it. I heard Gigi 2 or 3 meters to my side executing his Kuchios no Jutsu to summon the Monkey King, Enma. I heard people falling while their bodies spasmed and smelled the blood coming from their wounds. I smelled smoke and flesh burning while buildings crumbled. I heard a scream. Gigi. I jumped back to my feet, but the old man was already moving, Enma and staff form firmly grasped in his hands. I followed him at breakneck speeds through the streets, jumping a corpse here and there while going fast as I could in the direction of the sound. I tried to imagine what was happening, morbid curiosity, maybe, but I didn't need to. I finally saw the perpetrator of these atrocities here. Right here. And he wasn't alone. Uchiha Itachi was standing tall in the street ahead of us, holding a raven-haired woman, his mother, if I could recall correctly, by the neck. Sasuke was lying on the floor, bleeding from the forehead, while Itachi Sharingan eyes were blazing in the darkness. A bloodied sword was in his hands, preparing for the final blow. I remembered what I knew about Uchiha Itachi, and it wasn't nice. The man was a killing machine, created in the bowels of Konoha's Anbu and tempered in battle. In the headquarters, we talked about the deeds of the Captain Weasel in hushed tones and never to his face. There was a time when I saw him sparring against 4 of the better soldiers I knew. He was doing it without even a sign of strain on his face, and completely at ease. Itachi was simply that good. He wielded his Sharingan like a lesser man did with kunais, nothing more than a tool for him to use, and wasn't in any shape or form limited by his ocular prowess. He swiftly dodged out of every attack, striking back in a grace and brutality which I could only recall as inhuman. And now he was here, in front of me with a woman in his hands. People would call me a fool for the stunt I was planning to pull. Hell, even I would call myself that. Even then, I couldn't bear the sign of him ready to slay a defenseless woman just like that. Too many bad memories in my head to allow me to. So, in these split seconds, I reacted in the only form I knew, raw violence. I moved before the Hokage could say anything. I shoot like a kunai straight in the direction of that coward, the ground under me cracking with each step I took and my speed rising by the second. He couldn't react fast enough to stop me. Even his famed genjutsus were useless against me. My chakra burns everything, even his if he tried to put me in a genjutsu. I jumped in his direction with my arm primed to a punch. Fuck the hell off, it worked. My punch connected to his face and blasted him away, the force strong enough to blow the dust and leaves in the ground around me. Itachi's body sailed through what remained of the walls of some houses, destroying them in a hail of rubble and rolling over the opposite street. I could barely catch the woman before the Hokage appeared between me and Itachi, standing proudly with his chin raised and weapon ready. The meaning was clear, it was his fight, not mine. At least for now. Naruto, take these 2 to the hospital, Gigi ordered. He ignored my high of answer, and I could see his shoulders squaring before he addressed our enemy. His voice echoed through the night, full of authority, and every inch the leader of my village. Uchiha Itachi. What madness possessed you to do what you did? Gigi didn't need to shout. Tone was low and menacing, with cold fury present in each wrinkle of his aged face, and he had a vice grip around the staff, strong enough to make his knuckles white. Itachi merely stood up, dusting himself and looking at us like we were just a bunch of pesky annoyances on his way. Even if a trickle of blood caused by my punch was still dripping from the corner of his mouth, he looked completely unfazed by my attack. I needed to test my power, Hokage-sama. Itachi's voice betrayed no emotion whatsoever, dead as his fellow clansmen. It truly disgusting. How weak were these fools in their arrogance. His eyes flashed in my direction and I thought that I saw some signal of emotion burning here for barely a second, just before it died, as soon as it had appeared. And Hokage-sama? Itachi whispered, wiping the blood from his mouth and scratching a line in his headband with a kunai. You can take this as my resignation. Gigi didn't answer him with words. Instead, he charged with an enraged snarl. In a feat of speed, Itachi brought out another kunai from his belt and crossed it with the one he was already holding, blocking the end of the staff coming at his face. They began trading attacks in an onslaught of violence, the Hokage coming from left and right with his greater reach and the Uchiha deflecting or dodging every strike. The staff clashed with the blades repeatedly, with sparks flying from the collisions, and each of them sounding stronger than the previous one. I wanted to see, to help, but I couldn't. I had a job to do. I swung the unconscious woman over my shoulder and jumped in Sasuke's direction, putting him under my arm. I gave the fight a last look and turned back, ducking under a piece of debris and running away from them fast as I could. It was my first error that night. Itachi knew the Kage Bunshin. How couldn't he, as he had even improved the technique with his Bunshin Daibakuha? I saw something flashing in the air and reacted by instinct. I jumped out of the way and taking some steps back. It was him, not him, exactly, but a clone, and he was coming against me. Normally, I would deal with a mere clone handily enough, but I couldn't do that there. I was holding two people and had no time to drop them. So I did the best I thought of. I dodged. I ducked, swayed, and spun with each blow the clone sent on my way. Shit, I cursed under my breath. He was pressing me back and I just couldn't do anything. While our deadly dance continued, I heard sounds of things smashing and crashing, jutsus, probably, where Gigi was fighting the original Itachi. Dust clouds were raised and sounds like beats of a war hammer dominated the night. Then I committed my second error in that night. I was distracted. Itachi's kunai made contact with my flesh, tearing a gash in my belly with a sweeping horizontal motion. It broke my rhythm. I tried to retreat, but he exacted the first blood of our fight and came after me like a shark after tasting blood in the water. I only evaded his attacks for barely a hair's breadth after that. I had a decision to do. I could let those two I was holding fall to the floor, and risk Itachi catching them and doing God knows what, or I could. Boy! Someone shouted. Get away! I complied more by instinct than rational thought. I jumped away from Itachi, right in time to see a ball of fire with the size of a house speeding to where I was. The clone hadn't time nor chakra to defend himself before the fireball engulfed him completely, dispelling him and tearing a crater in the ground with the power of the explosion. I turned back to whoever had helped me and my eyes widened. Uchiha Fugaku, the proud clan head of the Uchiha clan, jumped down the roof. He wasn't in his best form, not even close. A gash in his chest was staining his police force uniform with a dark red and he had a bit of a limp in his steps. I met his gaze for a moment before his eyes swerved back to his wife and son in my arms. How are they? Fugaku asked. I managed to push Itachi away from his mother fast enough, I answered. The wound in Sasuke's forehead is still bleeding, but I can hear their heartbeats and… What? My eyes widened. Fugaku, I think. He silenced me with a gesture and shook his head. Like he didn't want to risk me saying that out loud. I felt kind of dumb. It's obvious he would know. He was married to her, after all. Good, he said and walked next to me, his eyes not even once leaving the forms of his last remaining family. He extended a hand and carefully, so carefully I could swear he thought he would break, ruffled Sasuke's hair. Good. I didn't say anything. It was his moment. He touched the woman's cheek and smiled, a small smile, but the first one I ever saw on his face. I waited like that for a second or two, before something roared in the horizon and the sound of a building coming down broke the spell and brought us back to the reality. Fugaku took a deep breath. Uzumaki, I know I never did anything for you and I don't know what you are doing with an ANBU uniform here. But I was taking a walk around here, I said. Something exploded far away and he raised an eyebrow in a silent question, but I just shrugged my shoulders. A very enthusiastic walk. Boy, now isn't the time. You hear me now, he said and looked right in my eyes. Get them away from here safely. I would do it myself, but I am wounded and slowed down. Make them get out of this night alive. It wasn't an order from one of the most powerful men of the village, not even close to that, no. It was just a father and a husband asking me to save his family because he couldn't do it himself. With what else could I answer him with? I just nodded. Somehow, he knew it was promise enough, strange man. In another life, we could have been friends. I need to go, I said, verifying my grip around the two. What will you do now? Fugaku didn't answer at first. Instead, righted himself and looked in the direction of the fight raging on. It wasn't too hard to pinpoint that either. Itachi and Gigi were already doing a number in that compound. When he answered, his voice was firm and hard as steel. My son did that. He did all that and then he tried to kill Mikoto and Sasuke. His own blood. My own blood, he said through gritted teeth, his Sharingans flashing red. As I clearly failed to do that in his infancy, it's my duty to teach him some measure of respect now. He picked up a kunai from his pouch and tensed, preparing himself to speed toward the fight that could pretty much be his last one. He was already wounded enough for it, even with the Hokage on his corner. Before he disappeared in a shunshin, however, he looked back to me. Farewell, boy, he said. The leader of an almost dead clan, going back to the battle of his life with his head held right and without fear. Thank you for helping them. He vanished in a swirl of leaves before I could answer. I stared at the spot he had been for a second more, then shook my head and shooed away for the hospital. The world around me diluted in a blur with the speed I was going, but I still pressed for more. I ran for maybe a minute, maybe two, until I reached the hospital next to the compound. I opened the doors with a kick and saw the flurry of movement. It was a busy night. What about all the explosions and all? Even then, everyone stopped to look at me when I entered, but I paid no mind to them and walked to the nearer NBU on guard. You! I yelled, practically shoving Sasuke on his arms. Code 52. Take me to a free bed and someone on this goddamned building call a fucking medic. The next clan head and the heir of the Uchiha clan are here, you fools. I could see his eyes wide behind the mask when he grabbed Sasuke. I switched Mikoto's body to a bridal carry, and saw him making some signals to the man behind the balcony, breaking into a brisk step. I followed him without saying a word and looked down to the woman in my arms. I would be a liar if I said she wasn't beautiful. creamy skin contrasting with a hair dark as the night, blissfully unaware of what was happening around her. I couldn't smell any blood on her, so she probably was unharmed, but the interesting thing was what I heard from her. 2 hearts beating inside the same body. There were 2 options here. Or the Uchiha clan had begun a program to create some mutants, or the woman was pregnant. I swallowed the bile on the back of my throat. She was pregnant, and Itachi tried to kill her. His own mother, with his sister or his brother inside her belly. If I didn't already loathe that man for what he did, it would surely make me. I didn't pay attention to whatever the Anbu on duty was saying to the medic, who looked at me with a worried frown. I put Mikoto on the nearer bed and pushed him to the side. Take care of her. The woman is pregnant, I whispered. His frown deepened, but he nodded nonetheless. Dusting my hands together, I looked at the Anbu, my fingers clicking on the mask hung from my belt. The man had a tanuki mask, one which I didn't know the owner. He got the message fast enough and began making gestures in the coded language we used on the force. Forces spread through Konoha as the Hokage ordered. Orders to retrieval the possible victims. Orders to guard the clan compounds, hospital, orphanage and the civilian area under the command of Dragon. Kakashi trying to organize the Jounins. No backup to the Hokage. No more than me, at least for the foreseeable future. I gave him a thumbs up and turned to run back to the compound again, but a voice interrupted me. And Naruto? Is that you? Well shit, wait. How the fuck did she know my name? I turned back to see the one calling me and saw Uchiha Mikoto, trying to right herself on her bed with her elbows, despite the fussing of the medic Nin, and embracing her belly with her arms. She looked frail, with a dead look in her eyes. I felt the need to try and comfort her. Yes? I answered, trying to sound as if I didn't need to go away fucking now. What are you doing here? What happened? What, my son? Where is he? I walked back to her bed and caught her hand, trying to calm her out of her frenetic questions. I put the kindest tone I could in my voice and looked her in the eyes, a thing which, looking in retrospect, was kind of dumb. The last thing she saw must have been the red color of Itachi's Sharingan, and now my own ones. Itachi is still alive, Gigi is fighting him with your husband though the compound. I shook my head. I need to go back and help, now, but Sasuke is there and alive. I pointed to the bed next to her, and she calmed down visibly when he saw the still form of her youngest son lying here. Still breathing despite the coagulated blood on his face. Look, I need to go back and help the old man. Just please stay here and let them treat you and your son, yes? I swear I will come back later. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something more, but closed it with a click and nodded to me, giving a small but grateful smile. I gave another smile in answer and backed off, my jaw set at the prospect of coming back to the battle waiting for me. The last thing I heard before I disappeared in a shunshin was Mikoto slapping the medic Nin hands away from her and shouting to him to heal Sasuke, with an absolute non-nonsense tone, and the bed sheets falling to the ground as she got up to be at his bedside. You know, Natsumi said, talking for the first time that night. We should revise our opinion about these Uchiha people one of these days. At least if Fugaku and his wife are anything to go by. That was something I could agree entirely. Susanoo. Time appeared to stop when I came back to the fight. They had moved the battle to the gardens at the center of the compound. Trenches were carved along all the way I ran back there, houses shattered, the pavement broken and debris scattered all around. It was like a hurricane had ravaged through the compound, but I knew the truth about it. I knew it was just collateral damage of Gigi and Fugaku Uchiha fighting Uchiha Itachi. The same Uchiha Itachi that had his father's body hanging from the blade of a shaking sword, maybe even shaking from excitement, while Fugaku bleed freely, with his chest completely run through. The same Uchiha Itachi that, somehow, summoned an ethereal skeleton around himself to defend Gigi's attack. What happened was obvious. Fugaku, wounded as he was, tried to do a last gambit to give Gigi an opening to attack Itachi, but didn't account for that skeleton. What did Itachi call it again? Susa something maybe, and paid for it with his life. While Gigi's smattering of earth bullets shattered against the translucent orange bone, I needed to act. Some people think I can only burn things. They are wrong. I focused my will on my chakra. Hell, if I would let that man die for nothing, and hardened it. Harder than metal, sharper than any kunai, and stronger than steel. A red glow illuminated the night as wisps of light surrounded my right hand. I have said that before. Chakra is composed of yin and yang. Spirit and physical power together, and mine is no different. While my yin, the spiritual form of my chakra, is fire, both metaphorically and literally, the yang part is a gift from my mother. A gift which further mutated on me because of Natsumi's presence. Adamantine. Hey Suzy! I shouted, extending my open palm to Itachi and his guardian. Get over here! A multitude of chains, all of them of a dark crimson, with an eerie red glow, burst from the palm of my stretched hand. It was the power of the royal Uzumaki line's blood, solid chakra, shaped by will alone, yet they could only do chains before. With me? It changed. I can make it adopt any form, any weapon, and any construct. It was Uzumaki Kushina's heritage, still alive and kicking with me. The chains constrained the skeleton arm with a vice grip. I planted my feet on the ground and sent more chains to the other arm, the material of that thing screeching as the chains pressed around it. With a roar and feeling my muscles bulging under the strain, I yanked the monster to face me. Gigi got the message. Itachi's eyes widened a fraction of a centimeter, creating a Kaigebushin without a hand seal. The old Hokage, his armor broken, scratched and bloody on some parts, crashed the end of his staff into the ground and flew through hand signs. I don't need to use hand signs, so I am kind of rusty, but I recognize the sequence. A collaboration jutsu between Doton, Earth and Stone Dragon, and Katan, Fire Dragon. He inhaled deeply, then Gigi and his clones spat a torrent of fire, earth, and stone. The elements mixed, swirling, before both coalesced in the shape of an enormous dragon made of stone and set alight with an internal fire. It howled in the night and speeded to Itachi's direction. To be exact, the direction of the skeleton exposed back. Itachi saw it, too, and I saw blood drip from his eyes as the skeleton gave an unearthly growl and two more arms appeared under the ones I was pulling. The aberration heaved mightily with a force I never saw before, managing to turn enough to defend Itachi, barely, with his ghostly arms. Fool. I knew why Gigi used that technique, and he used it because of me. Before the dragon could crash against the guardian, I extended my will and dominated the fire raging inside him, chaining it to my mind, to my power. The flames turned to a bright blue and separated from the main body as I guided them with the movement of my free hand. The second dragon, solely made of fire release and further enhanced by me, arched above Itachi and came down, engulfing him in an enormous column of fire as the one made of stone and earth clashed uselessly against the guardian's arms. A charred circle of grass extended around him as the fire died down. It wasn't enough, but I wouldn't let him rest. With a burst of speed, I ran next to him as the fire and punched the skeleton's ribcage with all my strength. A creaking sound echoed around the garden as my fist made contact, the earth shattering around me because of the strength of the punch. Then another. And another one. My fist was just centimeters from him. I needed just a bit more, but I ran out of time. As the monster heaved a hand to slap me away, I rolled back and sent more chains with my free hand to his two other arms, just as Gigi leaped through me with his staff in hand. I used my shoulder as leverage for the chains and pushed. All the four arms came down just in time for Gigi's staff to cave the skeleton's head in. The construct stumbled while the Hokage bashed it 2 times more before jumping out of his reach. Itachi, however, didn't show even a shred of fear. Instead, he made a ram's seal and these phantasmagorical limbs went still. I couldn't understand what he was doing until Natsume's voice resonated through my mind. Naruto. Her voice was frantic. Look down. I obeyed and discovered why Itachi was calm like that. Oh fuck. A bunch of explosive tags were smoking under my feet, and I saw sparks of the ignition of more and more coming from all around the center gardens. That motherfucker, that shrewd, smart motherfucker. The tags detonated with a deafening boom. Look, I am fine with heat alone, but the kinetic energy liberated by an explosive tag in number enough to intimidate Gigi's pile of paperwork was like Mike Guy attacking punching each inch of my body simultaneously. The bastard put shrapnel inside them too. I shot through the air like a stray kunai and couldn't feel anything under my right kneecap, just the shrapnel cutting my face and skin. I barreled through the walls of 1, 2, 3, 4 houses and dug a trench of tens of meters on the ground before I hit a street lamp and stopped with a sickly creaking sound. A cloud of dust prevented me to see anything or identify Itachi and Gigi. I felt blood on my throat and spat it to the side, blinking the dizziness out of my eyes to see what happened with my leg. Then I looked at it, or more precisely, the absence of it. I didn't have a right leg anymore. The knee was torn apart, everything under my kneecap resembling a bunch of minced meat lumped together, and putting off steam as my healing factor kicked into overdrive. I tried my best to ignore it. I took a deep breath and righted my back against the lamppost, and then slowly, but surely, I began getting up. My spine clicked with each movement, going back into place, while hairline fractures in my bones melded together. I created a crutch from my chakra to support me and, when I finally got up, the dust had settled enough for me to see the results of the explosion. The square was reduced to a smoking crater, and Gigi was near the center, the remains of whatever Doton jutsu he used to protect himself scattered around him, and a giant ghost arm engulfing his body. And right at his side was Uchiha Itachi, visibly panting inside his construct but, otherwise, completely unharmed by the explosion. I understood his plan. He prepared the terrain beforehand, stacking the odds in his favor even with me and the Hokage together here. He never intended to use that monster to take us down. He summoned it just to protect himself, and stalled for time until we were in the perfect position for him to unleash the bombs. Holy shit, how durable is this thing? I spat more blood on the ground. Thank you, Nat. No thanks needed. Someone needs to be looking out for your sorry ass. I didn't answer her, because that was the exact moment my spine ran cold. After the confusion dissipated from my senses, I could see Gigi clearly under that grip. His armor creaked and the staff pressing against his body as he tried to free himself. Itachi made a ram's seal again. An orange column of energy shoot around him, blowing the debris away while the colossus shifted. It was like seeing my own regeneration at work. Muscles began circling the skeleton, and he developed a more distinct appearance, and a sword. A fucking huge sword bigger than me, coming out from something like a jar of sake. I tried to put my weight on my bad leg, just to almost fall to the ground. Couldn't do anything. I couldn't send a chain fast enough, or blast him with fire enough to stop that monster without burning Gigi too. Itachi could squish him like a grape if I did nothing. Rage rose inside me. Who the fuck this bastard thought he was? If he killed Gigi, I decided to make sure he wouldn't come out of this fight alive. Even if it did kill me. My leg was now a mass of sinew, veins, and bone, with muscle filling the spaces left, but I didn't give a fuck. As I decided, adamant encircled and got through the misshapen appendage, a grid of chakra solid as steel interlaced to fortify and keep it together. It hurt. It hurt like hell, but I took the first step. Then the second. I don't know how it feels to be burned, but if I could risk a guess, my leg felt like a fucking inferno was consuming every bit of it. But I walked still, and I wouldn't stop until I and Gigi made out of this situation alive. I created a spear of adamantine on my hand and, putting all my weight on my good leg, threw it directly at Susie's head. The monster just swung his sword and destroyed it completely. Itachi! I yelled, my voice hoarse on my sore throat. Come at me, you fuck! Come at me! He didn't pay me any mind, so I picked a piece of debris out of the ground and threw his way, angry enough for it to probably miss him altogether, and with my teeth gritted for the pain in my leg. He finally turned to me. The sword on his hands dissipated and was substituted by could I call it a necklace? A collar made of something that resembled kamas. Itachi said something I couldn't hear and threw it at me, each piece of that thing flying directly in my direction, and that shit looked sharp. I growled to myself and bent over a knee, smashing the ground with a shout. Adamantine erupted from my fist, traveling on the ground and raising a multitude of spikes bigger than me. He thought that something like that could take me down. I would show him. I gritted my teeth with the first impact and channeled more and more chakra at the spikes before me, then came the second and more. A bead of sweat trailed down my face, but I didn't wield. I didn't wield until all the things were stopped. Trembling, I got up and laughed in defiance, waving my hands to dissipate the adamantine in flakes and flakes of red light. I laughed looking at Itachi, a laugh that slowly turned in a growl. That's all you have, you shit? Come here! I shouted. Or are children and pregnant women the only ones you can fight? You fucking coward! Come at me! I will rip you apart with my fucking teeth if I need to. He stopped and slowly, very slowly, he turned completely to my direction. I couldn't see his face clearly from where I was, nor could I try to foresee his reaction, but he just went still. The construct around him didn't move a centimeter while he just stared at me. Exactly what I needed. I began concentrating chakra in the biggest amount I could, the energy churning and twisting around my body, waiting for me to cut loose. If Gigi died, I would exact my revenge on his killer by reducing Itachi and everything in half a mile radius to a pile of ashes and piss in the remains. As Itachi began walking in my direction, the Hokage forgotten in one of his colossus hands, I was ready, well, as ready as I could be. I knew that I was outmatched. He was more experienced, knew my powers, and was pulling ethereal warriors out of his ass. But I wouldn't go down without a fight. Yet, when my attack was about to be unleashed, the air around my trembling hands distorted by the amount of power contained in them and the steel of my gloves melting and sliding between my fingers, I heard something. Something coming in my direction. I turned back, startled by the sound of footsteps smashing the ground at an unbelievable speed, and saw a green blur coming. Dynamic entry! Whoever he was yelled. Wah, I knew that voice. Guy-sensei. Guy motherfucking sensei. The green-clad Jounin entered the battle with the same exuberance he did everything else, unleashing an ungodly powerful dropkick right at Susie's ribcage. His power, probably boosted with the gates, crackled around him in a visible aura and his skin was colored a baleful red. The kick slammed on Susie's body like thunder hitting the earth, strong enough to blast everything around it away and create a crater with a shockwave of pure strength. The thing stumbled, not yet taken down, but with visible cracks where Guy had kicked it. That was my chance. I dissipated the energy around my hand and threw a chain in Gigi's direction, capitalizing on the confusion to yank him off the grip of the colossus. Then my eyes widened again when I heard the chirping of 1,000 birds. The expression in Itachi's face flashed in something I could only identify as polite exasperation. The fight was lost for him and he knew it, as he was well trained enough for that. With Guy and Kakashi here, the Hokage freed and now without any of us holding back because of any possible survivors and ready to put our most destructive jutsus to use, the situation was all but helpless for him. Kakashi came running straight at Itachi, with his right hand enveloped by the deadly lightning chakra of a Raikiri, the pure energy emanating of the jutsu digging a trench by his side. He was aiming to pierce the Uchiha's heart, without giving even a single fuck to any defensive colossus in his way. Itachi wouldn't have any of it. With a final look at us four with an eye dripping blood, Uchiha Itachi, the greatest prodigy of his age and from now onward known as the Butcher of the Uchiha clan, dismissed Suzy and dissolved in a murder of crows. Kakashi passed through them without hitting anything and, just like that, the fight was finally over. Over, and we were all alive, except Fugaku. Shit. Yet, I was relieved and limped next to them, Then I let myself finally fall over my back and let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Hokage-sama. I was running around Konoha on my nightly jog when my eternal rival came asking for my aid in this dire situation, said Gai-sensei in his own boisterous tone. His aura faltered and disappeared as he closed his chakra gates. And that's the youthful Naruto-kun here? I waved a hand to Gai as an answer. God bless his soul. You two probably saved our lives, Gai-san and Kakashi-san. For that I thank you, Gigi answered, willing his staff to disappear in another cloud of smoke and coming in my direction. The damage in the old man's body was clear to us now. His right arm pelted with wounds to the elbow, and he had some cuts on his face and torso. Fortunately, they were shallow and would be easily healed by a good medic. All in all, he was good enough after a fight like that. Naruto-kun, I can't say how much of a help you have been, the Hokage said, raising an eyebrow. But you have, well, something there. In your stomach? I raised my head from the ground just enough to look down, and saw a jagged piece of metal embedded deeply inside my abdomen, just below my ribs. I sighed and grasped the exposed part of it, pulling the offending object out of me with a spurt of blood. Just a flesh wound, I said, carelessly throwing the thing to the side. The wound steamed a bit, and in some seconds, there wasn't anything left of it besides my blood. Remembering about my leg, I waved my hand and dissipated the adamantine around it as I felt the skin growing back. The Hokage coughed and everyone averted their eyes. We heard something falling and our mind finally registered the level of destruction around us. Absolutely nothing stood unscathed in the compound. Even the ground was now riddled with craters and trenches born from our own attacks, and there was a raging inferno smoking to the sky. The few buildings still standing were already crashing down, and Fugaku's body had been obliterated by the explosion. There were some bits and pieces of people scattered around too, the thing with variation being the spice of life and all. Gigi spoke with a firm voice. Now, let's adjourn from this carnage to my office. We need to talk and go in the deep about what happened here. Kakashi-san, I want a report from the Anbu on what happened in the village. Gai-san, please go and alert the clans that we are safe again. Naruto-kun, deal with the fire and will come with me. I nodded and, almost lazily, extinguished the fire in the wasteland around us with a snap of my finger. I was simply too tired to answer with words. Kakashi closed his left eye and caressed the scar, probably remembering something or someone, while Guy was looking at the scene and scowling. I bit my lower lip, looking at the scenery around me. The price of that night was clear to us. The Uchiha clan was no more. Fucking night. Fucking Itachi. Fucking Suzy. I knew I should have stayed on the mindscape today. I plopped exhausted in a chair at Gigi's office and looked at the window with a closed fist supporting my chin. The man himself was sitting behind his desk and rubbing his eyes, exhausted. After receiving the news from Kakashi that, other than everyone on the police headquarters, there were no victims of the explosions, Gigi ordered the ANBU to keep the guard until tomorrow, then told me to follow him and came here. That was some night, Hokage Gigi, I said. Yes, I did see worse back in the day, but not by much. This fight was inside our own home, inside our own walls, Gigi said, his face finally showing his sadness. Seeing again the ground littered with corpses of people I once knew was a sobering sight to behold. For once, he didn't even look to the paperwork. Drumming with my fingers on the chair's arm, I looked at him. Still, I don't even imagine what the foo. He raised a hand to interrupt me. Language, Naruto-kun. I raised an eyebrow. Sorry. I can't imagine what in the world made Itachi do something like that. Killing his own people, his family. That was monstrous, Gigi. He didn't answer, but Natsumi did. Monstrous? No. This is humanity for you. I couldn't really argue against that. Gigi gave me a sad smile. Uchiha Itachi was a troubled young man, Naruto-kun. He was raised as a prodigy of the likes which seldom appear in our lands since his childhood. He began putting tobacco in his pipe and sighed. He grew fast in the ranks, being an ANBU captain at an age when other children just began to be introduced at the shinobi way. The cost for him, in mind and spirit, was steep. I knew that, and thinking about it, our life histories had parallels enough to make me uncomfortable. Could I have been like that if I hadn't Natsumi with me? Could I have snapped and descended enough into madness to kill my own clan? Of course not, Natsumi said. Seriously? I blinked at the sheer vehemence of her tone. Why? Because, Naruto, every person of your clan is already dead, she said. I coughed to suppress a laugh and jabbed a finger in my stomach. Too soon, Nat, too soon. The Hokage gave me a questioning look, but I just rolled my eyes and made rabbit ears with my fingers. He opened his mouth to ask, but instead just shook his head and changed the subject. Well, Naruto-kun, after the hardship of this night, I can only say that you have made me proud, he said, smiling to me. Your actions tonight saved the main line of the Uchiha clan of extinction altogether, and probably even myself. In the name of our village, I thank you. He finished, bowing his head slightly to me. I fought a slightly blushed back and waved my hands against the praise. Forget it, Gigi. Sasuke is a child and that woman was a damsel in distress, I said, and then remembered something. Did you know this Uchiha Mikoto is pregnant? And she seemed to know me. What? Gigi looked at me with wide eyes. Are you certain of that? I heard 2 heartbeats coming from her body, I answered. There's no other explanation. He waited in silence for some seconds, taking a long drag of his pipe. That changes the plan, he said more to himself than out loud, but I still heard it clearly. The plan? I didn't know what the fuck was he talking about. I stared at him with my head tilted to the side, waiting for an explanation or whatever. He just gave me a sorrowful look and stood up. Then slowly walked around his desk, pausing to put a hand on my shoulder, before he opened a cabinet and extracted a bottle of sake and 2 cups from there. The Hokage put the cups on in his desk and poured the drinks. Then he offered one to me. Gigi, you do know I am 14, right? I said with a mischievous smile spreading in my face. He gave me a look of disbelief. Old enough to kill, old enough to drink. You walked in a battleground with a Kage and saved lives here, Naruto-kun. I think you are more than apt to drink to your heart's content now. Don't think I don't know about you, Mitarashi Anko and Shiraniganma on the crooked kanai. I looked away and whistled a bit. That wasn't something I would talk about with my grandfather figure, thank you very much. Gigi then laughed, trying to give me a stern look, but still smiling warmly. Moreover, it's your Hokage who is ordering you, kind of Genin Uzumaki Naruto. Now drink. I snickered and drank a mouthful of the sake. It was some good shit. He sat again in his chair with a distant look in his eyes, taking a sip from his own drink. After I first stood with my sensei in battle, he did it for me too, gave me a drink and just sat there, without saying a word. Even I could see that this memory was precious to him. Tobarama-sensei was a hard man coming from an even harder time, but he knew that the horrors of the war shouldn't be taken lightly. And don't doubt it, Naruto-kun, today was a war. The sake burned my throat and set a fire alight inside my belly, a sensation that was kind of nice. After some time, with another sip, I rested the cup and asked Gigi something that was bugging me. What was that talk about a plan, Gigi? The Hokage just looked to the window, waiting some time until he answered, apparently trying to find a way to put it in words. I waited patiently until he finally turned back to me with a look I never saw before in his eyes. It's about Uchiha Mikoto. But first, I need to explain something to you, he said, then took a deep breath. Today, Naruto-kun, I saw your real character. You even saved my life, and for that, I will tell you the last secrets I know about you. The first is, of course, about your father. My head snapped almost painfully in his direction. He had told me much about my mother, but the subject of my father was never even touched in our conversations. I thought that he wasn't someone of note, so I banished all the thoughts about him from my head and just proceeded with my life. Apparently, I was wrong. He poured another 2 cups for us and drank his one slowly, probably considering the best way of laying the bare bones of the history before me. Apparently, he decided to go for brutal honesty. If you had any knowledge of the background of the other Jinchuriki around the elemental nations, it would give you clues about the identity of your father. He paused, waving his hand at me. Of course it isn't common knowledge, but generally, to instill loyalty to the village, the Jinchurikis are related to the Kage's family. Wait, what? Was Gigi saying, he was my father? Oh God. 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 Fuck me. Looking at the dumbfounded look I had in my face, Gigi must have divined, by means unknown, what conclusion I derived from his words. He began laughing almost hysterically, barely avoiding to knock his cup off the desk and guffawing until he began to wheeze for breath. I could only look at him in absolute shock. Gods, no, Naruto-kun, I am not related to you by blood, even if I care about you like a grandfather would. The one that you would be calling father if the circumstances of your birth were different. This one would be my successor. He couldn't be talking about. The Hokage voice was dead serious now. Your father was called, by his foes and friends alike, Konoha no Kiroi Senko, the yellow flash who, alone, decimated Iwagaku's army. The one that sealed the Kyubi and saved the village at the cost of his own life. He was the husband of Uzumaki Kushina, and his name was Namikaze Minato, but you might have heard of him, as he is more known as the Yondaime Hokage. Silence. Uncomfortable, shocked silence. I couldn't wrap my mind around this. Yondaime, the man who made me a Jinchuriki, was my father? The fuck? Was the man barking mad, maybe immersed in a deep psychosis caused by an overdose of distilled bishounen drugs to do something like that? Then a voice, a thoroughly amused voice at that, began laughing inside my mind. I sighed. Here she comes. Oh. My. Dear. Your father was the yellow flashlight. I am kind of dating the bona fide prince of Konohagakure, Namikaze Naruto, she said between her giggles. Bow to me, you mortals. Bow to the god Empress Natsumi no Kitsune. Ha ha ha, funny thing you. The man who gave the proverbial go-ahead to tear my childhood apart was my father. It's like my life is some bad shounen, or a thing like that. If he didn't have done, now wait a fucking minute right here. Remembering the teachings the ANBU people painstakingly instilled in my mind, I stopped just reacting to the news and began dissecting the consequences of that knowledge. Nothing changed. The man was dead. My mother was dead. My 2 clans were dead. I couldn't change shit about that, and if I began reacting to it like a brat, yelling and smashing everything around, Gigi would just be disappointed with me. Hell, if the Yondaime hadn't done that sealing mumbo-jumbo, I wouldn't know Natsumi. She wouldn't be here with me, she wouldn't tell me her stories and live by my side. My life would sure be easier, but it would be dull. Boring, even. I wasn't a child anymore and I had no need for parents. For all it was worth, I already had a family. Gigi, Kakashi, I am, Tucci, Hinata-chan, Natsumi, even that crazy bastard dragon was a somewhat of a deranged and psychopathic uncle. They were my people. There's absolutely nothing I would change about it. Without the yondaime bright idea, yeah, my life would be completely different. But would it be better? I fucking doubt it, especially without my special companion here in my head. I probably would end being an obnoxious little brat. I composed myself again and schooled my expression, accepting the news and rolling with the punches like a good ANBU should do. You know, Nat, I think that if I saw him now, I wouldn't punch that girly mug of his. Instead, I would give him a big thank you. Seriously, the man looked way too delicate for a kaiga in these pictures. After all, without him meddling around with gods of death and shit, I wouldn't have you. Natsumi stopped laughing and didn't say anything for a time, the pause extending for a few seconds until she finally spoke, with a soft and warm tone of voice that she reserved only for our better moments. In times like that, Naruto, you make me remember why in the bloody hell I choose you among all humans I've ever encountered before to call a partner. Then, of course, I had to put my metaphorical feet in my mouth with the expertise of a professional in the art. And stopping to think about it, you've already met your father and mother-in-law, I said, a smirk tugging my lips. Now we just need to dig the Rikudos Nin out of wherever his corpse is so I can meet him and complete the set. The silence, this time, was more unnerving, and without any softness. Not even a hint. And in times like that I really think that I was fucking disturbed when I made that decision. Cutting the connection with a barely stifled laugh, I looked back to Gigi, who was studying my face in quiet contemplation for my reaction, for the second time that night. Must be weird, to just stand here while seeing my face changing expressions without any word. I coughed a bit. Well, Gigi, I can only say that we are a bunch of retards. I sent a chain of chakra to pick the man's picture off the wall and held it side by side with my face, rolling the eyes and then trying to mimic the expression. Just look. Blonde, blue eyes, well, not blue anymore. Forget it, just look. The only others like this here are the Yamanaka, and I don't think that I have any affinity to barging in the mind of people. Or Kyubi would have some midnight snacks. I said, putting the picture back in the place with the chain. Good to know about him, anyway. And what's about Mikoto? He just puffed his pipe again. I would say something about his casual relationship with the tailed beast inside you, but I am just too tired for that. Oh, if only he knew. Man, he would be in for a long ride inside the rabbit hole. About Mikoto Uchiha, it's a delicate matter. First, you need to know she was in a genin cell with your father and mother. What? I almost jumped out of my chair. She knows. Yes, Gigi answered. But she couldn't meet you, and that was because I prohibited her to. He did. I gave Gigi a hurt look. He didn't let her, someone who knew my mom, meet me? Why? Why would he do that? Gigi raised his hands and was fast to explain when he saw the disbelief in my eyes. What you need to know is that after the Kyubi attack, the things with the Uchiha clan were treading a fine line, he said. The people in the village thought they were behind the attack, and there were you. I will not mince words here, Naruto-kun. Other than your friends on the shinobi ranks, people don't like you. At least there was nothing new here. Gigi then entwined his fingers under his chin. Now think what would happen if I did let Uchiha Mikoto, the wife of the Uchiha clan head, met you and take care of you. Of the Jinchuriki of the Kyubi no Kitsune. I would have a civil war on my hands, and my first responsibility is to maintain the peace of the village. That's why I took that decision. I took a long breath to control my own emotions. Gigi was right, of course he was. But it still hurt a bit. To have someone who knew my mother and father like that being taken away from me just because of politics. I could only ask him, "Can I met her?" I asked. The Hokage's smile was sprinkled with relief and some disbelief at my tone. He probably thought I would go full angsty at him. Well, I did not, because although he held that little secret, he cared for me and gave me a good future in the best way he knew. He was a good man doing what he thought was right, and I hardly could fault him for it. We will go to the hospital now, he said, nodding in my direction. I certainly need to break the sad news to her about her husband, and introducing you will at least give her a reason to be a little bit happier. I got up from the chair, anxious to go, but Gigi held a hand up, halting my progress. Don't be naive, I am trusting you here, Naruto-kun. His expression was deadly serious. You can tell about yourself to her, and we will decide afterward what to tell young Sasuke. But Mikoto is a pregnant woman who lost her whole clan tonight. And remember, the fault of her not talking to you before is all mine. Be honest with me, if you can't be mature enough to control your temper with her, tell me now and I will go alone. I straightened my posture and looked right at Gigi's eyes, my face serious. I am not angry with her, Hokage-sama. Hell, I am not even angry with you, I said, my jaw clenched with determination. I just want to meet her. Maybe try to talk with her and get to know a bit more about someone who was my parents' friend. Can you please let me, sir? Please, the Hokage interrupted me with a gesture and a proud smile. Come with me then, Uzumaki Naruto, he said, motioning me to follow him. I was tapping my foot nervously while I waited for Gigi to call me to their room. The waiting room of the hospital was empty at that late hour, and I only was permitted to enter because the Hokage was with me. He said for me to wait until he gave Mikoto the news and signal me to enter, and that had been 30 or so minutes ago. Hey Nat, I said. What do you think about her? I am impressed, Natsumi said. Don't misunderstand me. I hate the Uchiha clan, but that woman and her husband, did you see her shoving the doctor aside for him to take care of Sasuke? She has guts. I like that. I smiled and was going to answer before I heard Gigi calling me. Taking a deep breath, I got up and straightened my clothes, my ripped, bloodied and almost completely fucked up clothes. I walked to the door and opened it slowly, pausing to take a good look at the room. Sasuke was sleeping with a bandage around his head but was otherwise unharmed. Mikoto, though, had a bruise on her face and was being hydrated within 4, but the worst thing about her was the look she had, tears running down her cheeks and a trembling lip as she cried. Gigi, with her face shadowed by his hat, held her hand to give her some comfort, but it was clear that he wasn't succeeding much. Now, Mikoto-san, I want to officially introduce you to this young man here, he said, his tone warm. Mikoto choked a sob and turned at me, then her eyes widened and she looked back to the Hokage in disbelief. He nodded, answering the unasked question, and made a gesture in my direction. Nice job putting me in the spotlight, Hokage Gigi. Hello there, it's nice to meet you, I said in a somewhat shy voice and took off my mask, giving the distraught woman an uneasy smile. My name is Uzumaki Naruto and I am the son of Uzumaki Kushina and Namikaze Minato. She just gave me a disbelieving stare, her eyes impossibly wide, and her fingers around Gigi's hand were white from the strength of her grip. The Hokage motioned with his head for me to continue, a wince of pain tugging his lips. I shuffled my feet, a bit shy under her scrutiny, and scratched the back of my head. I think you know a thing or two about my parents? The story ends, Tomo-chan. Just as Icarus flew too close to the sun and the wax holding his wings together melted, I said, gently rocking back and forth the little baby girl I was holding on my arms. I was sitting cross-legged on the rooftop of the new house of the Uchiha clan, just relaxing and watching the sunrise. I looked back to her. We can learn from this story. Learn that, because Icarus was too greedy and tried to reach for the sky, he just fell and found his own end instead. The dangers of greed and all. Uchiha Tomo was just under a full 1 year of age by then, the first daughter of Mikoto and Fugaku. The only member of the Uchiha clan born after the massacre and, more than that, one of the reasons for Mikoto to not let herself fall into a depression after that night. So, how Tomo's existence affected me? Well, Mikoto, clearly possessed by something truly unholy or just being completely mad after giving Tomo's birth. I couldn't discard any of these possibilities, really, saw fit to make her my goddaughter. Yes. I, Uzumaki Naruto, became a godfather. Crazy thing that. I tried to change Mikoto's mind. I argued and pleaded, but she was adamant about giving me that honor. Said something about trying to make up for all these years she ignored me, obviously not caring about the fact I didn't blame her in the slightest, and then said she wanted to give me a true family. I wasn't too optimistic about that, to be honest. That feeling lasted until I saw Tomo for the first time. Looking again at that little girl, that beautiful baby with black eyes and pale skin who was giggling as I bounced her around, I just wanted to thank Mikoto for doing that. Tomo was so small, so frail, so goddamn precious. But you, little Tomo, you are different, I said, raising a hand and creating a little ball of sunshine above my palm. She tried to reach for it with her small arms and made a gurgle of excitement. You can try and reach for the sun all you want, because the sun is mine, and it will be my gift to you. It will never hurt you, nobody will. I made the fire spiral to the sky and disappear. Tomo made a perfect circle with her mouth, her eyes wide while she looked at the little show. I couldn't help myself and laughed, pushing her closer to me and rubbing my cheek with hers. I am glad to know you, little sister. My smile widened. I am glad. The moment was broken by a shout. Naruto-kun! I heard Mikoto calling from inside the house. Kakashi is here for you. Get down! I looked back to Tomo and sighed, still smiling though, then held her close to me and jumped down the rooftop to the ground, which earned another little sound of joy from her. Already a little daredevil, that one was. The sun is mine? Natsumi repeated my earlier words and laughed. You spoil her something awful, you know? And so you know, your hubris is showing. Right here. Tomo-chan deserves it. I shrugged at the accusation and felt my cheeks flush a little. These days Nat, I really don't know, but I think I am changing. I am feeling more, you know? I can feel the sunrise, even the stars at night, that and much, much more. I raised a hand to the sky, looking at the sun between my extended fingers before I closed my hand into a fist. Do you know why? You are becoming more attuned to the concept of fire, she answered. More like me, if you want to think like that. Everything you are beginning to feel? That, Naruto, that is something I dearly miss. Not only seeing, but feeling the sun being born, day after day. That much energy connected to me, now us, and everywhere at the same time. She let her statement open and fell into a silence. I knew her enough to pick up the sadness and longing in her voice, even if she tried to hide it from me. I scowled. That wasn't right. Nat should be out and about here in the real world, free of her shackles to do as she wished. Not confined by a seal and imprisoned inside me. That familiar guilt welled inside me again. That was just wrong, Nat. Someday I swear I will. I know, Naruto. I know, she interrupted me with a tired sigh, trying to sound nonchalantly about that. But not before we kill the one with the power to control me. Now go and talk to Mikoto. I need to think for a bit. Alone, Natsumi finished, cutting the mental link between us with an audible snap. I closed my eyes for a second, then schooled my expression so Tomo-chan couldn't see me sad and flicked her nose. After pausing on my way to take a deep breath, I put a smile on my face and entered the house without much hurry, going directly to the kitchen. I swear you are a bad influence. Uchiha Mikoto turned to look at me, drying her hands in her apron before she picked Tomo from my arms. Tomo-chan always wake up at the sunrise now, waiting to see it with you, just so she can immediately fall asleep after you go away. I scratched the back of my neck. Sorry. Kind of happened by accident the first time, and I think she likes it. I am joking, Naruto-kun. She shook her head and smiled. That habit gives me time to make breakfast for Sasuke-kun and Tomo-chan, and Kami knows that boy needs to eat more. Where's his scrawny ass anyway? Language. Mikoto gave me a stern look, and Sasuke-kun is still sleeping. These sparring sessions of you two are very demanding to him. Not everyone has your Uzumaki stamina, she sighed with a faraway look in her face. Your mother was the same, always running around, shouting just everything she said and dragging us to adventures with her. I found myself fighting a grin that threatened to split my face in two. So, Kakashi is waiting for you in the backyard, Mikoto said and gave me a mock scowl. Go away from my house now, you freeloader. Chop chop. I gave Tomo a kiss on the cheek and turned to Mikoto with a mischievous smile. You didn't complain after my cooking tips. That meat was gray, Mikoto-chan. Meat shouldn't be. I ducked under the swat she sent in my direction and ran away, laughing. Who would imagine that the Uchiha matriarch's prodigious skills in housekeeping didn't extend to cooking? Mikoto cooking before I took the matter in my hands was the closest thing to chemical warfare I had ever seen. Seriously. I even had to drag Im here to try and help me to make sure that she wouldn't make some plague in her kitchen by accident. My friendship with Mikoto was a welcome addition to my life. As we didn't need to be apart now that the Uchiha clan was almost extinct, I found myself more in her house than living in my apartment, even more after Tomo was born. I even managed, miraculously, to struck something resembling a friendship with Sasuke. Or the closest thing possible of it that anyone could have with a Uchiha. Meh, whatever. I and Sasuke sparred together sometimes, too. Not that I ever went full on against him. That bastard was a piece of work, but for my utter disgust and horror, I found that I kind of liked him and didn't want to kill the guy. So, I used my understanding of his fighting style to win by technique instead of strength. Kakashi's lazy drawl cut me from my thoughts. Yo. If this isn't the new big brother on the block finally coming to see little old me, don't even joke, I am too fucking young and clanless for that. I shook my head and looked back to the house. Still, thinking about it, I don't know why Mikoto-chan trusted me enough to make me Tomo-chan's godfather. Childbirth drugs, maybe? We were in the backyard, also being the training area of the house. It was a simple 2-story home, spacious, yes, but not nearly opulent and big as their old house in the clan compound was. But it was a home, and Mikoto seemed to be happy with it. Even happier after I went nuts and protected it with every seal I knew after working for 2 days straight. Now, a boss summon falling from the sky wouldn't even risk the painting. Kakashi put a hand on my shoulder and gave an eye smile. Ma, chill down, I think it's cute. Matter-of-factly, I didn't want to interrupt your fun, but Hokage-sama told me to pick you up urgently, he shivered. Even threatened to throw us in a week of D-ranks if I didn't, so D-class missions meant catching Tora. Holy shit. Let's run before we piss him off, then I said, ready to go before I remembered something. Oh, don't you want to go inside and see Tomo before we go? Sadly, I can't, Kakashi waved his hand in dismissal. The poor girl is probably already sleeping, now that you're not bugging her with your new sun-loving hippie bullshit anymore. And do you want to risk seeing if Hokage-sama is serious about the D-rank duty? Oh, call me a hippie, will he? I would be tempted to put Kakashi on my shit list, but he was already in it, and he had been there for so long that he probably had obligatory housing welfare and all. I gave him a dirty look. Let's see Gigi then. Comfortably seated on a couch at the Hokage's office, I and Kakashi waited for Gigi to finish his apparently infinite amount of paperwork. Only after what appeared to be an eternity and a half, the man signed the last document and took a drag from his pipe, finally looking at us. Maybe stealing this pipe would be a fitting vengeance for calling me this much early? No, probably not. I wasn't too keen about him going full the professor on my ass in the training grounds for that. Good morning, Naruto-kun, Kakashi-san, he said with a chipper tone that no one had any business in having this earlier in the morning. I called you two here to give your new assignments for the next years, so pay attention. I will not repeat myself. He looked at us seriously, then dropped the proverbial bomb. Naruto-kun, you will become a genin on our official ranks. It means that you're out of the ANBU from now onwards. What? I jumped to my feet with my eyes wide. I wanted to shout and protest, but I knew that face. He wouldn't be moved out of this decision. He was simply giving me the news, not asking my opinion about them. ANBU work couldn't be called easy, of course, but I liked it that way, much less bureaucratic mumbo-jumbo and all. Shit, I wasn't even sure that I could be a normal ninja anymore. Gigi wanted to put me in a team with children now. Untrained children while we're at it, plus a random jounin looking over my shoulder and ordering me around. That was a recipe for certain disaster. But Gigi, I began my protest anyway and he cut me with a glare. But nothing, Naruto-kun. It's an order and that's final. You know the ninjas drafted into ANBU generally have a stay of just 3 years before they are dismissed back to the normal ranks. Yet, you're still in the Corps for your 5th year and counting. I couldn't argue against that, but fuck me if I didn't want to. I already had seen a number of good men, good ninjas, who were changed into husks of their past selves because their time doing dirty work. Shuffling my feet and looking down, I could only accept my orders and try and find anything good about it. Roll with the punches, learn, adapt, and overcome. That's final, Hokage-sama? I asked, and he answered me with a nod. I bowed my head in his direction, my tone of voice controlled and low. Sorry for my outburst then. The Hokage gave me a comforting smile. I already have a team in mind for you, you know, but put a smile on your face before I tell you about them, as you are not alone in this endeavor. Gigi then turned to my sensei with a raised eyebrow. Kakashi-sen will be returning to the normal ranks as a jounin sensei too, seeing how his time serving in the ANBU was even longer than yours. Kakashi didn't even have the decency of looking ashamed about that breaking of protocol, just shrugged and inclined his head to the Hokage's direction, accepting his fate. Suddenly realization came to me, that was a setup, wasn't it? Kakashi wasn't surprised. Oh, I needed to make this bastard suffer for doing that to his only apprentice, alright. He will be your jounin sensei. If you graduate, of course, I couldn't help it and grinned. For your teammates, the first is one Uchiha Sasuke. I trust you agree with my choice, Kakashi-san? He gave Gigi a nod. I approved the choice, too, even if no one did ask for my opinion. Sasuke was skilled and had a lot of potential as a shinobi. More than that, he was one of the 2 people I counted as close friends in the academy, along with a certain Hyuga. Gigi then picked some papers from his desk drawer, about the 3rd member of the team. I examined the scores of the graduating class and found someone that can fit right there. That young woman coming from a civilian family, Harino Sakura. What? I couldn't manage to hold my outburst. Sakura? I then twisted my hands in my back and looked down, not wanting to go against Gigi's choice, until he made a gesture for me to begin talking. I bowed my head again and managed to control the displeasure in my voice with some effort. Hokage-sama, she is just book smarts all over the place. She is arrogant and has the physical capacity of a garden cricket. Gigi, please reconsider your choice. Please. Gigi paid attention to my reasoning and didn't answer my plea with words. Instead, he handed me the papers he was holding, a signal of respect, showing he wouldn't just steamroll my opinion like he could do if he wanted. I found that the documents had the names of all my classmates, the probability of approval, and a little overview of their capacities. Basic stuff and all. It had the grades too, but fuck them. The enemy never asks if you know the favorite fruit of the Night-Aim Hokage before killing you. I fought a smile down when I saw my name and a miserable 5% chance of graduating. That would surely rock the boat. Kakashi, too, peered at it under my shoulders. We shared a look and he gave me a discreet wink, before inclining his head in Gigi's direction. The message was clear, that was my show now. Gigi interlaced his fingers under his chin. Alright, I will hear your reasoning, even if I don't agree with your assessment of Sakura-san, as I suspect you're judging her capabilities too harshly and too soon. He gave me a stern look. Other than that, who do you think that is the best choice for the Team 7 if Sakura is out of the picture? I didn't even need to read the files to make my decision. I want Hyuga Hinata. If my choice surprised Gigi, he didn't show any hint about it in his expression. He was silent for a few seconds and I could almost see the gears spinning in his brain while he weighed the pros and cons of accepting my choice. Kakashi put a hand on my shoulder, maybe to show he was with me here, through and through. She would be a good choice, indeed, the Hokage finally said. Unfortunately, Yuhi Kurenai has already laid a claim in her for the Team 8. Kurenai has already been her mentor of sorts for a long, long time, after all. I bit my lip to muffle what I really wanted to say before Gigi gave me a bemused look. You know you can talk freely with me, Naruto-kun. Hinata-chan, she needs someone who can give her motivation to be the best kunoichi in this village, and I know he can. I am her oldest friend, and ever since I first met her, I did my damned best to give her confidence, I said, trying to maintain my voice low. Kurenai is good, but she can't understand Hinata like me. Not her strength, not the power of her will. We need Hinata here. I took a deep breath and bowed my head to the Hokage for the 3rd time. Please trust me about this. I, too, would prefer Hinata. Kakashi suddenly gave his 2 cents in the conversation. I already know the girl just for being around Naruto, and she shows great promise as a kunoichi. Better yet, the teamwork between these 3 could very well be the stuff of legends, and I agree with his reasoning. I looked to Kakashi and gave him a silent thank you before I turned back to Gigi with a smile. Yeah, and if Sasuke can deal with any female around him without having a panic attack and thinking of fangirls, it's her. The Hokage didn't laugh at my joke. Instead, he silently thought about the decision for almost a minute, which made me increasingly nervous in the process, until, finally, he picked the sheet from my hands and sighed in exasperation. Probably thinking about the talk he would have with Yuhi Kurenai if he agreed with me. I couldn't blame him. Kurenai's temper was already pretty famous around the village. I will sanction it then, he acquiesced and fixed me with a serious stare. I will do it because you told me the truth and did it with honesty. I am glad to see you don't think me as a fool who can be deceived, as many do. I scoffed at the thought. If anyone is fool enough to think that, they deserve whatever is coming to them. But really, thank you, Gigi. The Hokage put the documents back in the drawer, returning to the matters of your new duty, Naruto-kun. Today you will go to the academy and take the graduation tests with your peers. This time, however, you have my order to pass. Yes, I will. Now if I can go, Gigi shook his head. I wasn't off the hook yet. I felt a chill down my spine because of that gaze and, trying to ignore the feeling of dread welling in my belly, I stood still and waited for whatever more he would ask after all that. I will have your mask back before you are dismissed, Kitsune. Oh. That. I winced when I heard my codename again, probably for the last time too. Passing a finger in the seal in the underside of my wrist, I made the fox mask appear in a puff of smoke and, with some hesitation, put it on his desk. There it was, more than 5 years of my life, arguably the best 5 I even had, ending with this mask. I fell to one knee, head bowed in his direction and my right arm over my chest. Gigi picked the mask and began the ceremony. Ansatsu Senjutsu to Kushibutai Operative Kitsune, you served your village in the shadows and brought peace with the blood of our enemies. The glory of your missions wasn't recognized out of the corporation, your deeds weren't heard in the streets, and the deaths made by your hands will remain forever unnamed. I heard the cracks appearing in the mask. My beautiful, familiar and glorious mask. It made me wince, almost if each one was a punch in my gut. Kakashi again put a hand on my shoulder. Each word Gigi said had the finality of a gravestone. Your will of fire will now shine brightly among the leaves of the great tree again, for your work under the shadows has ended. Kitsune is dead. He finally crushed the mask between his calloused hands. From his ashes, rise again, Uzumaki Naruto. The first thing I saw when I stood up again was the shattered remains of my mask on the desk. It had ended. I wasn't an Anbu anymore. I was back to being just Naruto. It's a shame. That mask was a turn-on, Natsumi whispered. I didn't smile at her joke. You still can have me, anyway. Well, do. Also, you will stop brooding now, it's undignified. Accepting her advice, I picked a small shattered remain of the mask off the ground and looked at it. Dragon always said that a Black Ops operative couldn't complain about the unexpected. Instead, he adapted to it and made the situation his own. I bowed in Gigi's direction a final time and bumped my fist with Kakashi. Want me to be here for your ceremony, Ina-sensei? I do not, he said, dismissing me with a gesture to the window. I need to talk privately with the Hokage after that. Just buy a bowl of ramen for me. God knows that I need one now that you will be my official student. I smiled humorlessly, giving him a punch in the shoulder before I walked away and put a foot on the windowsill, pausing to take a deep breath. Funny, most of the people would call me free now, even if I didn't ask for it. I put the piece of my mask in my pocket with a last look. The village of Kanahigakure no Sato was here, spreading under me. Almost like it was defying me to go, and made myself known to them. Like a predator waiting to tear me to shreds. Accepting the challenge, I bared my teeth and opened my arms, then I jumped out the window, feeling the cold wind passing by my face while I fell from the Hokage tower. Poor fools wouldn't even know what hit them. Well, it seems like miracles can occur. Uzumaki Naruto, being silent? Now there's a thing I never saw before. I glared at Sasuke. I found him on the way to the academy, and I wasn't feeling very talkative after what happened in Gigi's office, so I just walked with him in silence. He was giving me a smirk, his delicate, like a girly porcelain doll, features, mocking me without him needing to even say a word. Liked you more when you just went around grunting, I mumbled. Do you now? Consider it payback. You were always talking how Sasuke is so bitchy and silent, so brooding, and look, your motor mouth is now apparently broken. Funny, he kind of has a point, Natsumi said. Oh, fuck you, Sasuke, I said, giving him my middle finger. You want to hear my voice, I will record a tape for you to hear in your alone time. Just give me the word and it's done. Seeing his disgusted expression was exactly what I needed to laugh. You're disgusting. He wrinkled his nose and gestured in the direction of the academy building, acting like I hadn't seen it a million of times before that day. So, we are finally here. No shit, I said. Then I shook my head and turned to enter the building, at least until I felt him grabbing my arm before I could go. Naruto, I turned back to him. He was looking at me with narrowed eyes, the smirk out of his face, and not even a slightly joking tone in his voice. What happened to you today? I looked right into his eyes for some seconds, weighing in my mind if I should tell him the truth or not. No, not yet, not enough time. I ran a hand through my hair and looked away. Look, Sasuke, I will tell you later. The severity of his expression didn't ease in the slightest. I rolled my eyes and lightly punched him in the chest, grinning. Let's go now, big fella, and sit away from me. I ain't have no desire deal with Ino and Sakura today. Sasuke scowled at the reminder of these two but didn't ask me anything more about my mood. Scoffing, He shoved me out of the way and took the lead on the way to the classroom. What a rude bastard. All the loud and meaningless chit-chat of the academy's crowd ceased when we walked past the entrance of the classroom. I was without my orange clothes here for the first time in years, so I can't fault them for the sudden silence, even more seeing how Sasuke was by my side. They never understood the fact that I was the only one he talked with, other than Hinata sometimes. It didn't matter because the brunt of the surprise was due to my presence. Without my large neon orange jumpsuit and moronic smile, now standing straight, I could be as well a completely different person. That's Naruto? I picked Chuji whispering to Shikamaru, who had labeled me and everything about me as troublesome some years ago. Smart guy. The Nara just shrugged at the question and yawned, going back to his nap after giving me a once-over. More of them started talking again, and I rolled my eyes. I bumped my fist with Sasuke and, of course, just ignored them. I could already hear Ino and Sakura coming from the outside, horns locked in their foolish cold war for Sasuke's affections, and I really didn't have it on me to care about it or discuss seating arrangements with these two, which I would have to do if I remained next to the Uchiha. Not today. Looking around to find a vacant desk, I walked to the one at Hinata's side and sat here, feeling my mood lightening more and more by the second. Hinata always had that kind of presence which made everyone feel more peaceful and calm around her. It was unusual for me. Normally I wouldn't want anything to do with peace and calm. Hello, Hinata-chan. I greeted her, giving a big smile. Her cheeks were dusted by pink, and she visibly forced his fingers to not begin poking together as it was her habit, at least before I got my claws on her. Instead, she gave me her own smile. Hello, Naruto-kun, Hinata. She was a real beauty, both from the inside and the outside. She grew her hair longer last year, almost until her hips now, and the Haim haircut framed nicely her face and her lavender eyes. She was just 14 years old in contrast to my 15, but was well on her way to becoming a gorgeous woman, more than she already was. It was a proud point for me that her bulky coat, a relic of the time when she still had less confidence, found itself abandoned in a trash can some months ago. She had now a new form-fitting jacket colored cream and lavender, an outfit which was completed by blue pants and sandals. Only I knew that, under the jacket and shirt, there was a little pendant of a star and a delicate chain dangling around her neck. Everyone be quiet, Iruka-sensei said as he strode on the classroom. He stopped to look at me, noticing the obvious changes in my body and posture. Funny how small you can appear with baggy clothes and walking hunched down. Naruto, what in the world happened to you? While I was searching for a suitable answer, Iruka was waiting for me to talk and tapping his foot with impatience. Fuck it, let's improvise. Delayed puberty, I said, smiling innocently and bobbing my head up and down like it was the most common thing in the world. Medic Nin in the hospital said that the Uzumaki clan genes are finally acting. Weird, yeah? Smooth, Naruto. Very smooth. Natsumi mocked. My half-assed excuse caused a look of absolute disbelief to spread on Iruka's face, but he didn't ask more. Probably, for the sake of his sanity, he just relegated the episode to an obscure corner of his mind and decided to never think about it again. People did it all the time, mostly with things about me. Sakura, however, didn't. What is that about a Uzumaki clan, Iruka-sensei? I remember them appearing in some of your lectures, but you never focused on them. My neck almost snapped with the speed it turned to face her. There wasn't anything on her face that would suggest she was trying to put me down or mock me, just honest curiosity. I couldn't understand it. The Uzumaki clan, Iruka-sensei began, a smile on his lips. You could say anything about him, but the man liked to teach. They were a clan from Yuzushiogakure, an island next to the Wave Country. I can bet, though, that everyone knows some members of it, or at least one of their most famous members, to be exact. Uzumaki Mito, the wife of the Shodaime Hokage. Uncharacteristically, the whole class was paying attention to him now. Naruto has a clan? Sakura asked, her eyes wide with surprise and darting from me to Iruka, and then me again. He is related to Shodaime-sama? Isn't he an orphan? You are more right than you think, girl, Natsumi laughed. I had a clan, I corrected her, my voice echoing in the silence of the classroom. Not anymore. I am the last one. The atmosphere was kind of uncomfortable, now. Sasuke looked in my direction. We did talk about it last year, joking about how we were the last remnants of our clans. He gave me a slightly, almost imperceptibly, nod, and I returned it. I didn't want pity and he knew it. All he offered was understanding. He wasn't my friend for nothing. Iruka coughed, averting her eyes from me. That's why we don't talk about the Uzumaki clan in the classroom anymore. It's a sore object to us, so much that we honor them with the symbol on our official flak jackets. Was that real sadness in his voice? 3 villages ganged against the Uzumaki in the Third Shinobi War, in the event called the Drowning of Yuzushiogakure, where, Kiri, IWA, I said through my gritted teeth. We bastards got together and came to destroy Yuzushiogakure like the cowards they were. Cocksuckers feared the Uzumaki as we were good, no, not good, the best, at the sealing arts. They feared it, and so, while Konoha was distracted by some platoons of them in the war, they sent the rest of their boys to our island. I knew that story perfectly. It was detailed in the Uzumaki Codex, a last-ditch effort to record our story before it was sent back to Konoha by my grandfather's wife, and it still filled me with rage about how their demise was perfectly avoidable if the other nations weren't such a bunch of cowardly pussies. I gave a feral smile. The Uzumaki gave better than they got and fought back. In the end, though, they were too many. 3 Kegas and their apprentices were there after all, but we didn't fall without a fight. Oh no, it took 3 days. 3 fucking days. They won, but in the end, we made them pay the price. With blood. Sakura was looking at me with a slack jaw. She never saw me talking like that, knowledgeable and angry. I could understand why she was shocked. But that was not all. There was sadness written all over her face too. Real sadness at hearing what happened to my clan. Gigi words about her echoed again in my mind. Maybe, just maybe, she wouldn't have been such a bad choice for my team. The survivors were scattered, most were hunted or changed identities. Mom was here in Kanahigakura as kind of a representative, so she survived. Her name was Uzumaki Kushina. I laughed bitterly. She saved all of your asses in the QB incident, but no one talks about her. No, the tale they tell is about the bright and loved Yondaime, and how his perfectly shiny ass saved us all. I felt Hinata's hand on mine and found, just then, that I had my hands balled into fists. I forced myself to calm down, taking a deep calming breath after seeing the worry in her eyes, and looked back to Irika. I didn't know if his surprised expression was due to the fact I was shitting on the Yondaime, or if it was because I knew who my mother was. Maybe it could be that he was that much desperate to not touch the QB's subject with me in the room. Sorry, Irika-sensei, you can go on. I looked through the window for a bit, trying to regain control over my own feelings after my little speech here. Someone, though, whispered a question to me. You really dislike them, don't you? I turned to see Hinata asking me that. Her expression, she was actually worried about me. Her hand was still firmly put over mine, even if I wasn't trembling anymore. I hate them, I answered, my voice low. I hate them like hell. Fuckers ripped my clansmen apart, not because we did some shit against them or because we were at war. Yuzashio was neutral. Just for fear. Just because they feared us, feared what we could do and what we could become. Iwa, Kumo, and Kiri. I would burn all of them to ashes now with my own hands if I could. Then turned to Hinata-chan and smiled, even if I felt that my smile was slightly strained. But that's all in the past, any? So let's not dwell on this anymore. I understand how you feel, Naruto-kun. Hinata nodded, another kind smile finding the way to her lips. And thank you for telling me that. No, Hinata wasn't the one who should be thanking someone now. She would understand too, thinking about it. The Hyuga affair wasn't secret, and that fucked up thing that happened with the last Kumo envoy was still relatively fresh in Konoha's story. She turned back to Irika-sensei's lecture about how Yuzashio Gakura's fall affected the war, but not before she squeezed my hand for a last time before she let it go. Thank God I pulled that fast one on Gigi and enlisted her in our team. I let the background sounds of Sakura rapidly firing questions to Irika die. I let my head lie in my arms to try and sleep a little. My tactical genius can surprise me sometimes. I thought to Natsumi, still happy that I managed to convince Gigi to put Hinata on my team. Even if Sakura got some brownie points with me today, it doesn't matter. My way is assured that Hinata will be with us. Why, yes, a genius, she said, slightly dragging the last word. The same genius who wanted to create a ceiling array for summoning ramen directly from Ichiraku's and caught IM panties instead. Nat, clearly, wasn't all that impressed with my strategic prowess. I blushed, remembering that incident. It was just one time, she answered in a sing-song voice. Black, lacy panties. Closing the connection with a snort, I did my best to banish these thoughts from my mind and chastise myself. Bad Naruto, don't think about the undergarments of your sister figure. So I focused on what the fuck was happening around me. Irika, after fielding Sakura's questions, promptly changed to his lecturing voice, a powerful narcotic in its own right. Now, class, it's time we talk about the graduation exam. First, we will have a written test. I tuned him off and raised my face out of the comfort from my arms to give a look of despair to Hinata. She let a giggle slip through her carefully composed expression, and I banged my forehead on my desk, loudly. The joys of being in a learning environment, would they never end? The written exam was made, predictably, of a bunch of useless drivel which anyone with half a brain knew that wouldn't be worth shit in the battlefield. Gladly, that was finished, and we proceeded to the taijutsu bouts, which were varying between deplorable, passable, and in Hinata-chan's case, a massacre against her opponent. Ino didn't even touch her. Way to go, princess. I gave her a thumbs up and a toothy grin, just waiting for Irika to call the next fight. I had a passingly suspicion about who would be my opponent if Mizuki's grin was anything to go by. Sucker. Now, Uchiha Sasuke vs Uzumaki Naruto. Enter the arena, boys. I stood up, walking slowly to the center of the arena, staring at Sasuke. All they gave a confident smirk and followed me, mimicking my actions as I made the seal of confrontation. He then assumed the stance of the Uchiha's trademark taijutsu style, the interceptor fist. Ready to lose? Sasuke asked. I scoffed. Please. Come at me with your best shot. The smirk on Sasuke's face only grew larger. He then changed his stance into something I didn't know, maybe a bastardized version of Crane with grappling? What the actual fuck? You will find that this time will be different, he said. I know how good you are against the interceptor fist, So, how will you deal with a style you don't know? The interceptor fist was very useful with a Sharingan to enhance your reaction time against your opponents. But without one? Too many openings. To be really efficient, he needed for me to attack first, and hope that he could be faster than me. Sasuke knew he wasn't, so obviously he was working in a surprise against me. And now, finally, he showed his hand, in a public demonstration, no less. Shit, I needed to be careful. I knew how to deal with interceptor fist without killing him by accident. I knew the style from Kakashi and Mikoto. I knew what he would do and react when he fought with it. Whatever was he trying to do now? That was new. Something he prepared against me. If I misjudged a punch, caught in the haze of the fight, or he moved in a way I didn't anticipate as I attacked, I could kill him. I wouldn't take that risk against a friend. I want a clean fight. Only taijutsu and no ninjutsu. Am I clear? Iruka asked, looking at our banter with narrowed eyes. I nodded. Sasuke just gave a slight tilt of his head to acquiesce the instructions. Good. Hajime, he said, jumping out of our way. Sasuke jumped in my direction, trying to gain the upper hand, and let out a punch in the direction of my head. I dodged easily. He then began an onslaught of punches and kicks, all of which I just blocked or let fly past me. I blocked any coming to my belly and pushed him away with a palm in the chest. He was good. Very good, at least compared with the actual crop of students. He turned the impulse of the shove into a spin and tried to sweep my feet from under me. I was trained to react by instinct. Thinking before attacking was making me slow. I raised the foot he targeted, letting the attack pass under me, then tried to kick his face. Sasuke apparently counted on it. He raised his hands, softening the blow, and pushed me with him to the ground, aiming for a leg lock. Oh bitch, you don't? I shouted, yanking my leg out of his grip. Got you! He yelled, changing his balance with his arms and kicking me in the face. Then he cartwheeled back and jumped to his feet, adopting his stance again with a smile on his lips. First blood is mine. I got up and touched my lip. The finger came red with blood. Then I laughed. You're so on now, bastard, I said, and shooed into his direction. We began exchanging blows in a speed that had been unseen. Until then, in that field on this day, he sent a punch to my face. I blocked with my forearm and tried to elbow him in the head, which he deflected with his own free hand. He matched punch with a punch, kick with kick until he finally found an opening, slammed his fist on my gut, and threw me back with a shoulder shove. Sasuke's smile, though, had diminished with each attack until it disappeared. You're off balance. Your reactions are lagging, you are acting without the speed I know you have, and you are moving like something is weighing you. You are weak, he said, his voice a hiss so low that only I could hear. What have you done with yourself? Sasuke, I tried to talk, but my voice died in my throat. What could I say? He stopped for some seconds, studying me before understanding dawned on his face. You are not taking me seriously, he said, still with that low tone and with wide eyes, deftly catching up on what was happening. You are pulling your punches. His dad had trained him to assume the post of police force chief, as Itachi would be the clan head, and he did a damned good job at it. Sasuke was good as hell in catching little details like that until he could form a conclusion, and this ability was turned against me now. I couldn't see him reacting very good to a revelation like that one. I was proved right almost instantly. He was suddenly upon me, his face contorted in an ugly scowl. I blocked his attacks as I could, but he didn't stop. Hell, I don't think he even thought of stopping. He came like a raging berserker, punching me in the face and collarbone, then elbowed my belly and spun, kicking me in the back. He kept going on and on, even as he had already tackled me to the ground and began punching my face relentlessly. Why? I heard that hiss again before he put a leg on my chest and smashed my nose with his fist. Why aren't you fighting me like before? Sasuke asked, still punching me. I felt my nose breaking as he elbowed it, my face being punished hard enough to crack the bone. Why the fuck are you taking it easy with me? I felt blood filling my mouth and dripping from my nose, the cartilage breaking and mending together with each attack, just to break again. Sasuke was still spitting accusations with me with every punch with fury clear in his tone. He went on and on until I couldn't take it anymore. I blocked one of his punches with my forearm. Because I don't want to kill you, I answered and snaked a hand to the back of his head, then yanked his head down and headbutted him. 1 time. 2 times. 3 times, until his eyes were almost glazed from the impacts. I held him by the throat and rolled to the side, now rising above him. People began yelling all around the arena, but I didn't care enough to recognize what they were saying. I don't want to kill you, fool. I gave him back for the punches I took. Sasuke didn't have a bijou in his gut. He hadn't my strength, nor my healing, so every punch I gave hurt. Every punch I gave was a new bruise, a new wound. Why can't you understand, you bastard? I caught my breath and blew my hair from my face, turning to the side to spit a wad of blood. I needed to end it quick. I took advantage of his dizziness, and caught him in a rear naked choke, feeling his neck straining between my arms. Sasuke fought against it, spit flying from his lips and growling coming from his throat. The choke was firmly set, and he couldn't talk. I held him like that until I felt his strength slacking and that his fingers had stopped scratching my arms. Stop! Iruka yelled, yanking me away from him and throwing me on the ground. The victory is yours. Stop. I tried to catch my breathing, adrenaline still pumping through my veins from that fight. I supported myself with my elbows and looked at Sasuke, who was still awake and shooing Irika away, giving him treatment. I got to my feet and walked in his direction, my face blank, then stopped before my downed opponent. Sasuke, if I had fought honestly, would be smiling. Even in defeat, he would take his loss like a man and want to come back to the fight, smarter and stronger, so he wouldn't repeat the error that cost him the victory. Like he liked to fight, and fight with a worthy opponent. What I did had hurt his pride. He wasn't smiling now. I made the seal of reconciliation with one hand and offered him the other. He looked at me with rage still in his eyes, and for a second, I thought he wouldn't take my hand, yet he caught it. He pushed himself up and, by his own design or accident, came close enough so only I could hear what he whispered in my ear. We will have words later, Sasuke said, still with that venomous tone, before he shoved me out of the way with his shoulder and walked away without looking back. I rubbed my face with my cleaner hand. I felt tired beyond all belief. Yeah, I said, more to myself than anyone else. Reckon we will. Mizuki obviously wasn't very confident in my mental capabilities when he came to me with that bullshit of a plan. Before that, I got that little exam of basic jutsus and succeeded in it, almost without trying. What a surprise. Then, with the newly acquired and pretty shiny Hitaite I got from it, I had every intention to get the fuck out of the academy as fast as I could, before Sasuke could corner me and talk to Gigi about Mizuki and his bullshit. Apparently, it was not to be. Uzumaki, someone called from my side. Fuck me. I turned to Sasuke, trying to fight down the annoyance I felt about the conversation we would certainly have, just to be surprised by the sight of him. Sasuke's face was a mass of yellow and purple bruises with the worst wounds hidden behind bandages. Then I saw his eyes. Shit, he was serious. Yes? I asked, averting my eyes from him. You look at me while I am talking to you, he said with a low, deceptive calm voice, just before he sustained another stare down with me. You will explain to me why you acted like I was a child in that sparring. I know how you fight. What you did was nothing less than spitting on me. On my honor and my pride. Look, Sasuke, I said, raising my hands in defense. Be quiet, Sasuke ordered, walking near me in silence with his hands in his pockets. You wasn't fighting, you let me beat you. You felt pity for me, something I never did to you, he said, a vein twitching in his forehead. He then turned to look at the horizon. I want to know why you did act like that today. I want to know why, he proceeded without paying attention to me, because I know you. You love the fight, Uzumaki, as I do. You are free when you fight. You don't have it on you to do anything because of a misguided sense of fairness and pity. You pity no one again, like I do. Yet today, he paused and doubled down to pick a stone from the ground. Today you fought like you didn't want to fight me. Like you wanted to let me win, and which would be a tasteless victory, Sasuke said, opening his hands and letting the fragments of the stone fall to the ground. From someone other than you, I would think they did because I am a Uchiha. Maybe because they thought I needed to look good to my peers. But not you. He came near me, finally looking me in the eyes again, coming closer until his face was just some centimeters from mine. Sasuke's black eyes were burning with an intensity one seldom saw in his face, not the normal contempt he felt for those sycophants or anything like that. It was a raw feeling of pure scorn. Disdain even, the kind of look he reserved to talk about Itachi. Tell me, he said again, putting a hand on the trunk of the tree just an inch from my head. I smelled blood. Tell me that this fool I saw today isn't the real Naruto. Tell me that this weakling, that worm who would disrespect his friend, is not you. Tell me why, or we are done. You can be the godfather of Tomo, you can be my mom's friend, but we will be fucking done, Sasuke hissed, his jaw clenched in rage and his voice cracking for the first time. Tell me that you aren't just a condescending and lying traitor like that man was. Sasuke said that, and I knew there hadn't a worse insult in his mind than to compare someone with Itachi. He said that like he meant it. The disappointment he showed hurt. Fine. I shouted right at his face. He didn't flinch. You asking me to tell why I pulled my punches? Fine. I did it because I didn't know what the fuck you were doing and because I didn't know what you would do. Because if I didn't, I wouldn't have my fucking friend here anymore. I pushed him away from me, stronger than I intended. He didn't fall, but staggered a little. I fished around my pocket for a while and put a cigarette on my lips, setting it alight with a snap of my fingers. It dulled the world around me, reassuring when you simply feels too much. Didn't make me calm, but helped a little. You remember what I said before I ended that shit of a fight, Uchiha? Sasuke stared at me again. I knew him, he remembered perfectly. His mind won't allow him to forget what he understood as pity, like someone calling him weak. Yes, he finally answered. Yes. I remember. I closed my eyes and took a deep drag of the cigarette to center my own mind, a thing I found myself doing more and more since I woke up and met Gigi. I leaned over the tree that Sasuke used to corner me and felt the bark with my palm. Solid, heavy, old, breakable. Watch closely, I said slowly, finally opening my eyes and looking at the humongous tree, and understand. I closed my free hand into a fist and punched the tree with all my unrestrained, natural strength, feeling the elation of letting myself go, even if just barely. I heard the whistle of the air being abruptly displaced from the punch in the split second before my knuckles made contact with wood. Then it exploded. With a shockwave strong enough to make my hair fly back, the tree was pulverized. It didn't break, it didn't fall, it was completely destroyed in a cloud of splinters and old dust, ripped from the earth by the strength of my punch like it weighed less than a feather. Nothing remained any more on the spot it occupied. That's why I pulled my punches, Sasuke, I said without looking at him. I am strong. Stronger than you, at least for now. I know your usual fighting style. I would know what you would do in the fight if you had been using the interceptor fist. But you changed the game and my hand was too strong for me to play my cards. I sighed. You said I was free and that I loved the fight, and you got the right idea here. I love it so much that, if I don't restrain myself, or if I lose myself, I could end killing you there. It would be so easy, Sasuke. A wayward punch, a stronger grab. An accident. I turned back to look at him. He was watching me, still, the only visible effects of my demonstration being that he was some few shades paler. I haven't pulled no punches because I was thinking less of you. I pulled them because I knew you would die if I didn't. Mikoto doesn't deserve to lose a son nor Tomo deserves to lose a brother. They already did, one time too many, and I don't deserve to lose a friend, I thought. Didn't say it though. Sasuke didn't answer immediately, just keep looking at me until he finally nodded, the tension in his shoulders relaxing back to his normal posture. I walked past him, pausing to talk to him for a last time before people came to see what the fuck was that commotion just next to the academy. Someday I will tell you everything, I swear, I said, smiling for the first time since he cornered me. Not now though. I need to see the Hokage, but you know as good as I do that Uzumaki Naruto never, ever, breaks his promises. Yeah, I know, he said, and a ghost of a smile finally appeared on his face again, and you better do it sooner than later. Assuming you don't get killed for being an ass to the Hokage today. I laughed, and began walking again. Still, I needed to make something clear to Sasuke. Oh, and if you try, even think, of comparing me with Itachi again, I will rip you into pieces and feed them to the Inuzuka dogs, you fucking bastard. It was surprisingly easy to steal the Forbidden Scroll. Even easier when you just show up, explain the situation and ask the Hokage to do a solid one for you here and let you deal with Mizuki instead of just sending a squad of ANBU to subdue him in the woods. I am not surprised with the state of the graduating class if someone this much incapable of basic deception was your teacher, Natsumi said, disapproval clear in her voice. I was hidden in the woods at a safe distance from my shadow clone with the Forbidden Scroll. It wasn't the real thing, obviously. I held the scroll for some seconds, made a shadow clone and gave it back to Gigi. There was nothing written here, just a doppelganger of its form made of my chakra. But Mizuki didn't need to know that. I know, right? I answered, scratching the back of my neck. I swear that. Wait, someone's coming. I tensed up in my position, ready to intervene if it was Mizuki. My orders were clear. Let him talk, let him gloat, find whatever I could before taking him down, and handing his sorry ass to Marino Ibiki. Naruto Baka, what you're thinking? I heard a shout coming from whoever was approaching my clone. Wait, that wasn't Mizuki's smell. I know you like a good prank, but stealing the Forbidden Scroll? Explain yourself? Natsumi gave voice to what both of us were thinking. What? That wasn't Mizuki. That was Iruka-sensei, I said under my breath with wide eyes. What the fuck was he doing here? More than that, how the hell he followed me when I was certain I managed to wipe any traces of my presence? The fuck? It seems there's more than your dolphin-sensei than the eyes can see. Nat quickly recovered from her shock. Now, that's interesting. And here comes Mizuki. My duplicate couldn't even answer before a wall of shurikens came spiraling from the trees. Iruka reacted fast, faster than I ever saw him doing, and tackled the clone out of the attack's range, stumbling with the other me to the ground. I tensed again, just waiting the right moment to enter the fight as Mizuki finally appeared perched on the top of a branch. That's just a clone, Natsumi said. We need to wait. Before I could react though, Mizuki stopped gloating and threw that giant Fuma shuriken he carried on his back in their direction with a fluidity that belied his experience with the weapon. The same oversized shuriken that Iruka-sensei then took directly in his back, point first. And he did it to protect my clone, who was me, to his eyes. My jaw hit the floor. I thought Iruka-sensei only tolerated me, and barely at that because he didn't want to suffer the same fate as the other teachers before him. I liked the man, but I never fully trusted him. To see the same man completely willing to take a grievous injury just to protect me, or who he thought was me, shocked me into inaction. After all, I knew Iruka's story with the Kyuubi attack. Why would he do that? I looked at Mizuki and saw he yelling to the clone about the fact that I was the container of the Kyuubi no Kitsune, acting like it was a big secret. Worse, he was talking about it like I was the fox herself. Naruto, you bad boy. You never said to me that you are the Kyuubi. Should I be scared of you, big bad demon fox? I smiled, still shocked by Iruka's actions. Why yes, you should be very afraid, my innocent little vixen. Just when I began creeping in the direction of Mizuki's to disable him, he rushed in a dead run after Iruka, who had discreetly hinged himself into my own form. Sighing in annoyance, I jumped into the clearing, sniffed the air and began following the scent of these two men. You can say anything about the Chunin, and for what I was seeing, Chunin my ass, Yumino Irika. But the magnificent bastard was jumping around the trees completely undeterred by the fact that he had the point of a fucking giant Fuma shuriken firmly lodged inside his back. Ha had some big balls of stainless steel. My respect for him was simply skyrocketing with each passing second. They finally stopped, and I positioned myself in the trees behind Mizuki, who was, again, lost in the middle of a monologue about how great he was and yada yada. He really liked to hear his own voice. Before I could interrupt him, Irika answered his proclamation that I was a demon who would use the scroll to exact revenge upon the village. Against my better judgment, I waited. I wouldn't let Irika be hurt again, but I wanted to know what he really thought about me. No, I needed to know it. If the fact he took that shuriken from me was merely an accident, or, yes, I agree. A monster would do exactly that, steal the forbidden scroll and use its power to take his revenge against the people living in the village. Well, there it is. Yeet, Irika hadn't finished. But Naruto-kun wouldn't. He isn't a monster, nor is he the Kyuubi reborn. Uzumaki Naruto is a proud shinobi of the leaf and would never stoop so low as doing it. For the second time in that night, that man surprised me. What did I do for him to earn such faith in myself? I couldn't even imagine. I never opened myself up to him, never paid much attention to him in the school, and I surely never thought of him as anything more than a teacher. Maybe he was just a truly good man, rare as they are these days. Mizuki laughed and brought an arm back in preparation to launch the second Fuma shuriken, just as my clone came into the clearing. Irika closed his eyes and waited for his death, his wound taking his toll on him, probably thinking that the ruse against me would be successful and I would be hunted for the stealing. Now you will die. Just to protect you, beloved Kyuubi brat, and, oh, go suck a cock, I heard my clone whispering under his breath. He then blurred in movement and punched Mizuki before he could throw the last Fuma shuriken. Right in the face. Hard enough to make the man fly in my direction as fist met flesh with a crack of thunder, at least until I caught him by the back of his neck. I say the fella who talks the loudest is the one who does the least. I spat to the side, punching Mizuki again by instinct and closing my eyes, a giant smile stretching my lips. Naruto, what? Be quiet a bit. I want to enjoy the moment, I said to Nat, dismissing the shadow clone and receiving the memories of him hearing Mizuki's drivel in first-person point of view. And then the punch. That glorious, immaculate, and simply divine punch. Shit, I love shadow clones so much. I really, really love them. I took a deep and satisfying breath and opened my eyes, looking at the Chunin gurgling under the vice grip I had on him. You know, boy? I had a pretty crappy day today, I said with a happy voice. Gigi fired me in the morning, and on the academy I was so worked up that I almost ran to IWA to eat that Tsuchika's heart. All Sakura's fault. After that, Sasuke decided to let his balls drop and confront me like the prima donna he really is deep inside. I headbutted him, shaking my head after the impact. That was fucked up. Thankfully, all was solved after the graduation. I kept the chirpy tone in my voice and bashed his head against a tree. Then I raised his face to my eye level, completely uncaring about the blood flowing freely from his destroyed nose and busted mouth. Now, some fucking traitor decides that he feels like trying to steal the goddamned forbidden scroll and even has the balls to hurt my fucking teacher. I yelled, spit actually flying from my mouth. But not all is lost. I threw him to the ground and stomped over his right kneecap, feeling it crunch under my heel. 'Cause that traitor, probably from the goodness of his heart, just gave me an opportunity to vent and hurt someone. And here goes the left kneecap. So, Mizuki, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, and go fuck yourself. I punctuated the yell by kicking him in the ribs strong enough for him to shoot like a stray kunai until he slammed his back against a big rock some meters from us. He plopped to the ground, limp as a ragdoll, and it was obvious he wouldn't get up anytime soon. How this shitstain managed to become a chunin is a mystery for the ages. I spat on the ground from disgust, then I made a circular motion with my finger. He is all yours now, lads. Picking my clue, a swarm of ANBUs appeared from the trees, quickly and efficiently securing the traitor off the ground. A masked man, a 7 feet tall behemoth with a boar mask, walked in my direction. Thank you, kits. No, it's Naruto now, isn't it? Yeah, boar. Gigi fired me today's morning. I gave him a sly smile. Don't think I won't come to the HQ Friday to the poker night though. Oh, and tell Ibiki that I caught a distinctly reptilian scent on this fool. Boar eyes hardened and he nodded, disappearing in a shunshin with the other operatives. Mizuki's life wouldn't be too good after that. Sighing, I walked to the tree that Irika was leaning on, picking him up and slinging his arm over my shoulders without saying a word. Just as I began to run with him to the hospital, he apparently woke up. What in the mumbled Irika? Then he opened an eye with effort and looked at me, Naruto. What are you still doing here? Taking a walk, I said, smiling at his incredulous expression. A rather enthusiastic walk. Turns out that stealing relics gets boring after some time. But I saw you. Calm down, sensei. I will explain everything, at least the much I can. I said the last part under my breath, then gave his wound a searching look. Now just let's go to the hospital. Didn't you know that there are things that shouldn't be stabbed by giant shurikens in your back? Like your spine? God damn it, man. He wiped the blood out of his mouth and, with what I could swear was a mischievous smile that had no place on his normally stern face, he kept my pace without arguing or asking for me to slow down. Natsumi whistled. That thing I said about the quality of your academy teachers? Scratch it. Everyone has a terminal case of being fucking crazy in this village, and now I just found out that your senseis are no different. I just nodded in agreement with my mouth open. What the fuck was this man made of? And then he said I was the QB in human form, the fool. I kicked his sorry ass around for a bit, and all I said, opening my arms. It wasn't laugh. The fool said it like that was something of a big secret or anything. The Hokage laughed and took a drag of his pipe. Foolish young man, oh well, he is a Biki's problem now. You did a great service for us today in bringing that traitor down, Naruto, Gigi said and smiled kindly at me. If that's all, I will sign this mission as your first B rank out of the Anbu, and you can go and rest now. My smile disappeared from my face. That was time to make the decision, the one I was warring with even since that talk about the Uzumaki clan. I would not go through my future alone anymore. There would be people with me. Teammates. People I trusted, my friends. People I was keeping secrets from, as Sasuke kindly reminded me. Iruka-sensei's showing of loyalty just cemented my decision about what I needed to do. Actually, there's one more thing, Gigi, I said, looking right into his eyes. I was playing with this around my mind for a bit, and I finally found the right answer. I want to tell my teammates everything, my time in the ANBU, about the QB, everything. Iruka-sensei showed me that they don't deserve to be kept in the dark. They deserve to know all about me, about my story, and I want your permission for that. Gigi didn't answer immediately. He studied my face seriously, probably searching for something in my eyes that showed him I was sincere. I waited for him to decide, my hands clasped behind my back in a showing of respect. The Hokage then snapped his fingers. "Anbu here," he said to the ninja that appeared before him. "I want you to bring Uchiha Sasuke, Hyuga Hinata, and Hitaki Kakashi to my office, and I want it now. I don't care if they are sleeping or if Hayashi-san will raise a stink about it. That's an order from their Hokage." The ANBU bowed in the Hokage's direction before he disappeared in another shunshin. "You are not in the Black Ops anymore, Naruto-kun," Gigi said. "I trust your judgment, and I will permit it. I will even give your permission to tell them classified information about everything you think is relevant, even your lineage, and your tenant. I will not call Iruka-san because I have a report that he's actually sedated in the hospital, but the permission I am giving to you extends to him if you want to." He then took a breath, averting his eyes and looking to the outline of Konohagakure spreading beyond his window, firmly nestled under the Hokage monument. "I just hope they will not take it in the way most of the people out there do." I nodded in agreement and sat on the chair before his desk, feeling a smile stretching my lips, despite how tired I felt. There would be no more masks, no more secrets, no more need to hide. No more of that cloak and dagger bullshit. I finally could be honest with my friends. A weight had been taken off my shoulders and that made me feel good, alive, even. I gently touched the red braided cord I used as a bracelet. "Ain't no need for hope, Gigi. I trust them. Engraved in stone, do not go gently into the good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. I am recalling all our operations in the land of fire until second order." "What?" Kuratsuchi asked, her eyes wide in surprise. She crossed her arms and looked at his grandfather, the Tsuchikage, seated behind his desk with an air of defeat. She couldn't understand why he would do that. The report she had handed to him just mentioned the newest facts they had about Konoha's new Jinchuriki, which had seldom been known before they managed to squirrel some information away. The Tsuchikage sighed and gave her a look. "Konoha has a new Uzumaki in their ranks. The Jinchuriki at that, as I saw here in the report, a blonde kid who looks like he was created in a vat of steroids. Can you believe it? A new Uzumaki coming out of the woodwork." Kuratsuchi wasn't impressed. "What's the issue? Sure, he is a Jinchuriki, but why it's so bad he is a Uzumaki? You seem to not care if he is a Jinchuriki or not, grandfather," she said, tapping her foot and waiting for the answer. "The issue is that I remember Yuzushiogakure," the old Tsuchikage answered, swirling the cup of sake he held in his hand. "I remember all too well, and now they put that blasted Ninetales inside another Uzumaki, one that apparently knows his story. One that, if our spies are to be trusted, is basically Hiruzen's grandson." "That can't bad as you are saying," Kuratsuchi said and looked at him with wide eyes, suddenly feeling some uneasiness as his defeated expression wasn't abated. Why that's so bad? He's just a boy, even if he has great ancestors, sure we can take him if we wanted to. Couldn't we?" The Tsuchikage held her gaze for almost a minute without saying anything, making her feel nervous by the second, then snorted and looked away. Kuratsuchi, his black-eyed, fair-skinned granddaughter, was still so naive about the ways of the world. Not Anoki, though. He had experience, and had seen a great many things during his life. Some he treasured, like the growing of his family, and some he tried his best to forget. The drowning of Yuzushiogakure was firmly settled into the second category. "Sit down, child, and learn." He didn't raise his voice or show his emotions, but that was an order nonetheless, and one Kuratsuchi obeyed. "I remember that day when Mu came to me saying we would give a fatal wound to Yuzushiogakure, and their power. I was excited. I was young, naive, and the prospect of putting my name in the story with that battle made me eager. We rounded a great part of our forces and, meeting with Kumogakure and Kirigakure's platoons, we sailed to Yuzushio. The Tsuchikage closed his eyes and took a sip of his drink. I still remember that day. Sun shining over us, an infinitude of boats coming to wage battle. I was proud of my village and even prouder of their willingness to fight. I was feeling alive. Invincible Anoki snorted again. Foolish notion. The whirlpools were the first thing, they weren't normal. We needed all of our Sweitan users to even calm these things. Even then, our boats were damaged beyond all belief because they moved. We needed to water walk for the last mile so we could come to shore. Anoki looked back to Kuratsuchi, a bitter smile on his lips. Most of our boats, almost 100 Sweitan users dying of chakra exhaustion, many warriors dying for carelessness while they edged the whirlpools. The Uzumaki clan had begun to exact their toll on us, and we weren't even on the shore yet. In hindsight, we should have taken it as a signal. He paused, drumming his fingers on the chair with closed eyes. Kuratsuchi had never seen an expression like that on her grandfather's face. Pain was written over all these aged lines and sorrow, nor had she seen the faraway look he had in his eyes after he opened them. Then we came to solid ground and attacked. 3 Kages, 2 apprentices, against a clan made of maybe 500, pushing 1,000 people. That probably would be a massacre, no? Anoki shook his head. It wasn't. First, there were the seals, they were everywhere. In the chaos I saw people blowing up, being ripped apart, having their jutsu sealed just to be fired against them, disappearing, and worse, being pushed inside things, but we pressed on. We fought on and threw more and more people on the grinder. We thought the seals were the worst part of the fight. Anoki winced. These devils sure showed us the error of our ways. He drained the rest of his sake and poured more, taking another gulp before looking back to Kuratsuchi. That battle was vicious. What was an assault turned in a fight for 3 days, a fight against a bunch of demons. Did you ever see an old woman, the type of granny you would help cross the street, riddled with 4 kunais in her torso and still clawing for someone's neck? Did you ever see a kid, no older than our youngest genin, with half of his body blown off but still strong enough to hold onto someone's face so he could blow himself with him? Anoki retold these horrors and his eyes showed he was saying the truth. These people weren't human. I saw a couple fighting together. The man took a fire jutsu for the woman, a jutsu that should reduce him to ashes. Yet, blackened and scorched and almost unrecognizable, he picked up the one who fired by the throat and ran him through with the stump of his arm, after what he was still trying to get up. His voice was raised for the first time that day. Can you imagine, Kuratsuchi? That every civilian, everyone, after being taken down needed to be almost ripped apart until they stopped trying to fucking kill us? The old Tsuchikage then stood up, looking at the fear, awe, and disbelief written all over his heiress face, and raised his shirt a little bit. His stomach was full of contorted lines of scars like an enraged bear had used him as a plaything. That was what I received because one of their genins, in a bout of inspiration, saw fit to throw himself from a goddamn tower and fall upon me, kindly screaming for me to fuck off before punching a hole in my belly and leaving an exploding tag here. Thank Kamimu saved me before that thing detonated, or I wouldn't be here anymore. Kuratsuchi opened her mouth to talk, but couldn't find the words. That level of aggression, of self-abandonment and pure, unadulterated rage, was simply something she couldn't comprehend. They didn't try to survive, they decided that, if they would die, they would simply try and take down everyone with them. And the less I talk about their blasted royal line, the better, he said. The Yuzukage, a fellow named Kenshiro, was fighting us non-stop for 3 days. He didn't stop to eat, or sleep, or even to fucking catch his breath. Our Kages were preserving our strength, you see, Anoki said. Then we finally caught him with his remaining 3 guards at the end. We attacked together, 3 Kages and their apprentices, together, to take him and his guards down. But we failed to account that where we accosted him was his palace. His home turf. I never saw these much seals being used in a fight in my life. Everything we threw at him he threw back, made disappear, or twisted in something we needed to defend against. These guards were a piece of work too, as one let himself be impaled in the Sandame Raikage's fist to protect Kenshiro, and almost cut his hand off for his troubles. We fought for maybe half a day, reducing everything around us to craters. Kenshiro was one of the last ones alive, you know. In the end, though, he fell, and that's the better part. He didn't fall because we got him, or because he was too wounded. No, the bastard died of chakra exhaustion, he sighed, walking around his desk and pointing to the portrait hung on the wall. I lost my mentor in that fight. Kenshiro got Mu with something that ate his chakra pathways and catalyzed his power into an artifact he wielded, so he could block my Jintan. Kiri lost his Kage, too, not to Kenshiro this time, but his wife, who suddenly appeared from Kami knows where and took a hit for Kenshiro. Then, dying, proceeded to rip the Mizukage apart with her chains. He didn't reform after being turned to water, and the woman died with a smile on her lips. Kuratsuchi got up and walked to her grandfather, hugging him. She wasn't someone who commonly acted like that, not even to one of the people she loved the most in the world, but she decided that Anoki needed it. He was looking old and frail, a thing that wasn't common to him, and that she was surprised to be deemed trusted enough to see. I still remember Kenshiro's last words, Anoki said with a haunted voice. That bastard was on the ground, laughing like a madman, with rage still burning in his eyes and that fucking defiant smile still on his face. Before he passed on, I managed to catch up with him, I myself, bloodied and battered, and heard what would be his last words. The Tsuchikage took a deep breath and looked out of his window. He said, "You all failed," Anoki recited. "You bunch of weaklings and worms and sniveling cowards failed at taking us down. You can rob Yuzushiogekyu from us, but know something, we will be back, and we will pay you all back for that." He shook his head. Thus ended the drowning of Yuzushiogekyu. From thousands, just half a dozen hundred standing. From 3 kages, 2 dead. Konoha won the war because the Uzumaki almost ate us alive on that battle, and they had the last laugh, too. We got away the fastest we could from that hellhole as we saw seals erupting all around, seals that closed our access to the island. Anoki shook Kuratsuchi out and walked back to his desk, sitting in his chair. He couldn't find it in himself to even complain about his back in that moment, and interlacing his fingers under his chin. Kuratsuchi looked at him, visibly shocked by the story. She finally understood a bit, the slightest shred, about how fucking dangerous that bunch of men in who called themselves a clan had been. After that, I became the Tsuchikage, but I never forgot. And now, I finally connected the dots. Kenshiro had a daughter in Kanahigakure, Uzumaki Kushina, Anoki said, his tone somber. And with this latest report, I discovered that, apparently, she had a child, Uzumaki Naruto, the same child who is the new container of the Nine Tails. A truly breed royal line Uzumaki, with a chip on his shoulder, the ear of their Hokage, and the most powerful bijou shoved inside his gut. His words hang in the room like a death sentence, a room that suddenly felt too cold and silent for Kuratsuchi's tastes. "So yes, Kuratsuchi," the Tsuchikage said with a bitter smile, "I have a passing suspicion that we are, superbly and literally royally, fucked if we cause an issue." He gave her a stare and adopted the tone of command that belied his experience as Tsuchikage. "Spread the word. No IWA shinobi is to set foot in the land of fire until that little shit is dead and buried. That's an order."